Wednesday, March 22nd meeting of the Portland City Council. Carla, could you please call the roll?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Before we begin, there's a couple of items I want to take care of. First, our usual statement with regard to conduct. The next order of business is communications. Before we begin, I want to say a few words regarding council proceedings and maintaining decorum. The purpose of this meeting is to engage with and hear recommendations from the community on the public's business. In order for us to hear from everyone and to give due consideration to matters before the council, we must all work together to preserve the order and decorum of these meetings. To make sure that the process is clear for everyone, both those here and those watching on TV or on computers, I want to quickly review some of the testimony guidelines. My hope is that these details help everyone to feel comfortable, included, and heard, and also ensure that decorum is maintained. During the meeting, there are two opportunities for public participation. Communications, which is the first item up. Communications items are the opportunity to briefly speak about any subject. These items must be scheduled with the clerk, Carla, in advance, and they give people an opportunity to speak about any subject. These items, again, must be scheduled in advance. First readings of reports, resolutions, and ordinances. Public testimony on these items must address the matter being considered at the time. Please state your name for the record. You don't have to state your address. If you're a lobbyist, please disclose that information at the start of your testimony. It's also helpful if you're representing an organization to state that as well. Individuals typically have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated at the meeting. When you have 30 seconds left, there is a yellow light there. You'll see the yellow light flash, and I think there's a beep associated with it. When your time is up, the red light up front will blink. If you have handouts, please give them to the council clerk, and she'll pass them out to the rest of us. Any conduct that disrupts other people's testimony, any conduct that disrupts council deliberations is grounds for removal. So please keep that in mind. Before we begin communications without objections, I'd like to pull two items from the regular agenda. Item number 276 regarding the reappointment of 5 current commissioners to the Planning and Sustainability Commission. Susan Anderson cannot be here today. She would like to be here for that item, so she's asking, and I'm asking for the consent of my colleagues to withdraw that item. I'm also asking to withdraw item 277, bring that back to my office for further consideration. That amends an agreement with the San Diego Police Equipment Company for the provision of training ammunition. I'd like to pull both of those items, 276 and 277, back to my office for further review without objection.
Mayor?
Sir?
Just one other preliminary matter. We don't often have a forum in which we get to thank people who generally work behind the scenes and do the hard work of the city. But since we're joined today by Dennis Veneer, I want to embarrass him for a moment. He is the city attorney representing us this morning. Recently, he argued the 6th and final challenge to the constitutionality of the arts tax, and he did so before the Oregon Supreme Court. So that was a very important forum. It was a very well-attended forum. And whatever you think of the arts tax, whether you like it or not, and remember, your payment is due by April 15th. Whether you like it or not, I just want to compliment Dennis on behalf of the council. He did a superb job representing the city of Portland in that litigation. And the highest compliment that you could possibly pay him was paid to him by the lawyer for the other side, that on 2 occasions effectively complained to the court about the quality of the city's presentation. So I just want to acknowledge Dennis's good work on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Commissioner Fish. Carla, could you please call communications?
Item 262, request of Craig Rogers to address council regarding right to vote.
Good morning.
Good morning, council. So let's see. Is this on?
Is the green light on?
Yes,
Yeah, good.
yes.
As
Okay.
long as the green light is on, that means you can be heard.
Okay, thank you. On the right to vote, I just want to mention that there's something that everybody in this room has in common, and that's that we all make mistakes. And then we go down that road a little further, and then there's those that acknowledge those mistakes and those that don't. Behind me are just mountain ranges of mistakes. Hopefully I've learned from them and acknowledged them. And sometimes I'm all by myself and even my cheeks turn flush red with embarrassment of something that I've done, but I'm a better person for admitting it. Now, I'd like to address something that I heard on OPB. And Commissioner Fritz had an item that you wanted to pass. And this is an example of what I would call overreach. And you needed some votes to pass this item near the end of last year. And you were speaking about Charlie. And you said the reason why Charlie isn't running for re-election is because he has work to do. Well, I would call that an alternative fact. An example of that is if you look at this survey of the 4 years that he was in office, he has a whole hell of a lot of work to do, but it never got done. So I wanted to mention that. And in the state of Oregon, you can lose your right to vote if you're a convicted felon in prison or if you're a citizen of Portland. Because if you're a citizen of Portland and you can get 2 other commissioners to go along with you, it doesn't have to go to a vote. It can bypass the ballot and then council votes it in. I don't agree with that, and I want everybody to start paying attention to that. So moving along here, is that one of the first games we ever play in life is hide and seek. And I think that's probably universal all throughout the world. And yet, some people never stop playing it. And it's a game that's still frequently played down here at City Council. One of the examples is just in the Sunday paper. City housing officials wanted $500,000 to pay for fixes. The problem, there weren't 400 properties with code violations. The real number was 19. And then the money just kind of disappears. So I am really saying that transparent and accountable should start right now. We aren't going to know about these problems unless we ask all these questions. You know, we're like the white men that keep showing up and asking you over and over again. Part of the same reason why you're sitting in the chair right now, because we showed up time and time again with Charlie sitting in that chair, and now you are. So we need your help. We don't always know the right questions to ask. So we need your help in making things transparent so we can see what's there. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Next item, please.
Item 263, request of Catherine Smith to address council regarding her case. This was a clerk's office error. She had already spoke this month, so she graciously declined.
Very good. And just for the record, my office has been in communication with her as per her request at the last council session. Next item, please.
Item 264, request of Mary Vogel to address council regarding reducing fossil fuel demand by making downtown more walkable.
Good morning.
Good morning. There are some people in the room who've come in support of my comments. I'm Mary Vogel from downtown's West
Can you
End.
slide the mic just a little over?
Thank
so
you,
we don't
sure.
hear you. Thank you.
I'm Mary Vogel from downtown's West End, where I also run my business Plan Green. I was distressed to learn that despite a neighborhood general meeting where nearly every neighbor in attendance asked the Portland Art Museum to keep Madison Plaza open with unchanged hours of access, the board of the Downtown Neighborhood Association voted to express support for the museum's Rothko Pavilion plan. In the past, the DNA board has always supported keeping existing pedestrian plazas a priority, including opposing a proposal to close Main Street Plaza by Portland 5 a few years ago. Both the DNA and the museum have ignored the will of the people of the neighborhood. Although the 9 DNA board members may claim that it will cause a minor inconvenience to a small portion of the neighborhood, that is not at all the case. There are hundreds of residents in the adjacent blocks and many city workers and tourists using the streetcar stops on 10th and 11th Avenue who use the plaza passageway. One count on May 4th, 2016 showed 667 people, including some with disabilities, using it just when the passage would be closed by the Rothko plan. Pedestrian passageways are an integral part of the neighborhood's transportation plan, and this one is used heavily both early morning by residents and workers and late at night by visitors to the entertainment district. Hours the museum plans to close the plaza. As you know, the Central City 2035 plan looks to increase pedestrian friendliness, not decrease it. The Climate Action Plan sees neighborhood walkability as a prime strategy for reducing demand for fossil fuels. Why would we even consider for a moment closing this passage? Please uphold the current conditions in the museum's vacation and leave Madison Plaza open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day. Please do not erode any further the intent behind the original conditions. A, that a permanent 8-foot wide easement be provided and maintained. B, that said easement not be blocked in any manner and that it be adequately illuminated. And C, that the vacated street area will not be used for any purpose other than an open mall. Please do not create a super block. Closing the plaza will do just that. Please don't take us backwards. Request a revision of the museum's Rothko Pavilion plan. Keep our dense downtown neighborhood walkable. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So I forgot one part of the statement I was supposed to read. One second, because it sounds like the commissioner has a question. Just thumbs up or thumbs down would be great. We'd appreciate it, and thank you all for coming in to show your support. We do appreciate it.
I just, I'm wondering, with your planning background, I'm guessing that you know what the next steps are. Is that issue going to be coming to council at all?
We have not yet heard whether it will or not. I mean, to get a thorough vacation, I would imagine it would ultimately have to come to council. It has not, as far as we know, gone to the Planning and Sustainability Commission yet. So,
and is it currently in the Design Commission? Or what's the stage?
I'm pretty sure it has not gone to either the Design Commission or the Planning and Sustainability Commission. I would think it would probably have to go to both. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next item, please, Carla.
Item 265, request of Norm Santana to address council regarding behavior of police towards peaceful citizens.
Come on up, sir.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak for you
Thank you for being here.
today. I was really kind of disgusted when I was at Pioneer Courthouse Square a while ago, peacefully protesting, and we had to dodge tear gas canisters, and I'm tired of the police treating us as as criminals. It's not really a crime to protest. I suppose you could say it's kind of sort of a borderline crime to block traffic, but it just seems that us as being peaceful and unarmed, and okay, maybe we're a little nasty and maybe we scream sometimes in here, please don't take it personal, that we're angry because we don't know, we don't see, the kind of action that would make us feel like, you care about the problems of the homeless or the problems of an out-of-control police force. And, you're in charge of those guys. And I would hope that the officer that killed Mr. Hayes, even though he might not be indicted for anything like murder or anything, that, maybe he would be suspended. Maybe, I don't know what kind of power you have to do that, Mayor Wheeler, but I thank you.
Thank you. And just so people understand, there is actually, so the grand jury came out with their verdict yesterday, so they offered up what's called a not true bill, meaning from their perspective, the use of force was justified. There's a completely separate investigation that's conducted through internal affairs and overseen, or accountability is provided by the Independent Police Review Board. That is a separate process that looks at whether or not police policy was followed. I'm sorry to say that process is not a quick one. There's a lot of checks and balances in that process, and ultimately it can go to a citizens committee at the very end, so I can't commit to any time frame. But I do want to say this. While the grand jury had their findings yesterday that the use of force was justified, I hope all of us agree that this is a community tragedy. And having met with Quantas Hayes' family and frankly having an appreciation for that family, I know this is a particular tragedy for them. So I appreciate your
that you
being
came
here.
out there when we were screaming and yelling and cussing to listen to us.
I had 3 brothers. That was just another day for me, and I appreciated it. So thank you, and that was a good session. And by the way, it opened up some other good listening opportunities. On Monday night, I had an evening session. 2 weeks prior, I had another listening session. And I think we're all committed to doing more of that. You said it right up front. Communication is a really important thing. Being clear about what's happening and why it's happening, that's also really necessary. And the first speaker also referenced that. I think it's really incumbent upon me as mayor to make sure that I'm communicating fully and clearly about what's going on and why. So I appreciate your comments today, sir.
And I don't have any personal animosity towards any of you.
Thank you, sir.
But, I'm going to keep yelling.
That's fine. Thank you, sir. Next item, sorry.
Item 266,
Thank you.
request of Scott Fernandez to address council regarding public safety and public health.
Morning.
Scott Fernandez, Portland. Today we're going to be talking about.
Scott, is the green light on?
It is lit. I'm sorry. Maybe try that other one.
Great.
Maybe
Sorry.
just
This
slide
one?
the other one over if it's
No,
better.
seems like it's okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
We're going to be talking about corrosion and cryptosporidium and radon, just briefly. Right now, we've gone 20 years with the Water Bureau dealing with inconsistent lead and corrosion mitigation procedures. With the situation right now with our pipes that are filled with biofilm sediments in distribution systems, leads to a number of water quality problems, including high bacterial counts, bad taste and odors, nitrification, and acceleration of corrosion. The answer is, with one of the pieces of material that you received today, is going to AECOM as a contractor to fix this situation with our distribution system. The Water Bureau, on the back page of the original testimony, is the Water Bureau says that they're going to take 70 years, and this is in their budget for this year, 70 years to flush the entire distribution system. 70 years. We can have AECOM do this very quickly. And on the back part of this deal, it shows the different sequence of how to do it properly. And they show on the inside the pipes that we're dealing with right now and the benefits from the unidirectional flushing that they could do, and showing in contrast the unidirectional flushing that saves a lot of drinking water. This is the answer that we need to have, because we're sitting here, we're looking at 5 years down the road approximately, $20 million for a treatment plant that we don't need. One of the critical issues here too is we should use calcium carbonate as a buffering agent for the alkaline pH benefits of that. for 3 reasons. Number one, it's an alkaline chemical, and it buffers more effectively because it's a moderate chemical. But most importantly is that it has calcium in it, and calcium will interact with the bone structures of the people that are dealing with the lead situation and will mitigate the lead from entering into the bone structure. So this is important, and I think we need to really acknowledge this along with ACOM. Secondly, with the reviews of cryptosporidium, cryptosporidium is not a public health issue here as shown in the city of Portland. It's shown over the last 120 years. Recently, I was at a meeting that Portland Water Bureau, answering a question, acknowledged that the lab that they're using right now in Portland has no lab certification. This is critically important. They don't have it yet. They have no accreditation from that, no expectation of meaningful, accurate results, and no proficiency. So the determination that we've had over the last 3 months with cryptosporidium, all that data is worthless. And the answers that they're giving us, that this cryptosporidium is in the system, has no lab certification. And this is critical. We need to readdress that and not accept that as truth, because it is not functional. Radon. Am I over now?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you quickly wrap it up, just say a few sentences, and we, of course, have your written testimony here.
Thank you. I'm disappointed that we had to receive radon in our drinking water at 100% over the last month. That is a very critical toxic chemical that will not go away because it's a gas and it has 12 decay products that come with it, and it will stay within our homes, schools, businesses, daycares, and etc. I'm asking if we can have a citywide town hall on our water situation. We have problems with radon, cryptosporidium, and corrosion. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. We will move next to the consent agenda. Carla, have any items been pulled from the consent agenda?
I have not had any requests.
Please call the roll.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The consent agenda is adopted. And that brings us to the regular agenda. Just one reminder, we have pulled items 276 and 277 through consent and removed those back to my office for further review. So please call the next item.
The time certain.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm skipping the time certain. I apologize. First time certain, please.
Item 267, adopt the Portland Development Commission's recommendation to fully redevelop the Centennial Mills property.
So the Portland Development Commission seeks the council's direction for how to move forward with the Centennial Mills property. The course of action recommended by the commission intends to get this property into productive use and also provide public amenities such as an extension of the Willamette Greenway. The Portland Mounted Patrol Unit, which was located on this site until demolition started, would not return to this location. We have a couple of people here to present. We have Tom Kelly, who is the Portland Development Commission Chair. We have Kimberly Branham, the PDC Executive Director, and Lisa Aboif, the Development and Investment Director at the PDC. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. Good morning. I'm Tom Kelly, Chair of the Portland Development Commission. I'm here today to share that at our February 2017 meeting, the Portland Development Commission voted to recommend proceeding with the development of the full Centennial site. The Commission's recommendations follows consideration of economics of redevelopment of the site, the public benefits of redevelopment, and the resources that could be unlocked and deployed through development of the site. Kimberly Branham and Lisa Aboff will share that information with you for your consideration. Thank you,
sir.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about the background and future of the Centennial Mills site and to seek your approval, as the Chair mentioned, of the Board's recommendation. So first, I'm going to provide a short summary of PDC and the city's history with the site from acquisition until our most recent efforts, and then Lisa will talk about the current status of the site as well as the actions that we've taken to prepare for redevelopment and to understand the options before you today. So we're bringing this decision to City Council both because of the long history of coordination between City Council and the PDC on the direction of this site, and also in response to City Council's inclusion of a budget note directing PDC to report back to City Council on the financial implications of the MPU returning and remaining on the site. But before I begin on that, I'd like to just recognize Will Thier and Jillian Detweiler at PDC, who have been ably managing this project, as well as a number of our city bureau partners, in particular Chief Marshman and his staff. Marty Schell is here, who've been strong partners in discussing alternative locations for the MPU. We'd also like to recognize all of our community partners, many of whom have been stewards of this vision long before any of us who are at this table, and appreciate their long-term partnership in this work. So PDC's acquisition of the Centennial Mills site helps to implement the goals of the River District Urban Renewal Plan and the Pearl District Development Plan. The original intent of the acquisition was to improve the greenway and areas adjacent to the Tanner Creek outfall in order to provide better access for the neighborhood to the river. PDC acquired the site, which was a combination of 10 buildings which had developed as a complex and were hard to even differentiate between them, for $7.7 million in 2000. The site was envisioned as the riverward terminus of a sequence of parks starting at Jameson, going to Fields Park, and ultimately connecting to the river. Next slide. In 2000, the Mounted Patrol Unit was located nearby on 9th and Lovejoy on another PDC-owned property. As redevelopment plans for that property progressed, Mayor Vera Katz worked with PDC and the Bureau of General Services, which is now part of the Office of Management and Finance, to find a new location. After searching nearby properties, BGS identified Centennial Mills as a suitable landing site. So BGS and PDC entered into an intergovernmental agreement to renovate a portion of the old mill for use as stables, riding arena, and police offices. It took about an acre of the site. Given future plans for the Centennial Mills site, the original lease between PDC and the Mounted Patrol Unit acknowledged that the facility would ultimately be demolished. In 2005, as the Pearl District neighborhood had grown with affordable and market housing and new office uses, City Council directed PDC and the Bureau of Planning to develop a framework plan that reflected the updated community priorities for the site and did not assume that the site would be 100% used for open space. So over that next year, PDC and Planning completed an analysis and significant public outreach, resulting in the Centennial Mills Framework Plan, which still guides, which was adopted by City Council in 2006 and still guides our high-level objectives. The 5 guiding principles include providing open space, defining a community focal point, embracing sustainability, strengthening connections, and capturing history. Based on the framework plan, PDC issued solicitations and worked with 2 separate developers between 2008 and 2013. The results of both pre-development efforts were deemed financially infeasible, as they resulted and required significantly higher public investments than we had available in the River District for the project. And this was despite the increase of an original $13 million allocation to $20 million within the River District budget. So what you'll hear from Lisa is that some of the financial challenges, included the design and engineering requirements and the complexity of reuse. The 10 buildings all had their own particular challenges, as well as the significant costs associated with providing on-site improvements such as the dock and bridge. So some of these financial challenges have been addressed by working through the selective demolition and some of the great analysis that's been done, but we do want to emphasize that delivering on a number of the community goals exceeds the resources that PDC has alone and will require partnerships with our infrastructure bureaus and the private sector to deliver. So with that, Lisa's going to give an update on where we are.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. So what we wanted to give you is just a snapshot in time of what have we been doing most recently. So in 2015, the Bureau of Development Services, after several reports of collapsing beams, shifting columns, and disintegrating pilings, which were supporting the wharf structure, They designated the mill complex and notified PDC as such as a hazard to public safety. Based on that notification, PDC proceeded with selective demolition, and during demolition, the Mounted Patrol Unit relocated its officers and horses off-site just so that they weren't impacted by the work that was occurring around them, but they did continue operations. We're happy to say that the contractor was able to salvage 300,000 board feet of old growth timber that was put up for sale and is ultimately being reused out in the community, as well as many historical items and equipment that we have put into safekeeping for reuse on the site as we think about the greenway improvements or some of the public realm improvements. In addition, as part of the federal permitting process, because we were doing work in water required for demolition, PDC entered into an agreement with the State Historic Preservation Office where we documented all of the buildings that were included as part of selective demolition. We made commitments to repairs to the iconic flour mill building, and we also did make commitments around kind of how those items that were salvaged would be reused, and an interpretive information would be shared on site as it develops so that the community can kind of experience the history of what the site once was. Throughout demolition, we also held regularly scheduled public meetings with our board as a public open house and attended neighborhood association meetings, and we're pleased to say that despite a very complex scope in terms of the selective demolition, our contractor, Northwest Demolition, actually completed the scope on time and under budget. So the budget that you see is actually under what our board approved as the overall budget, not to exceed. So during that time, we worked closely with the Police Bureau and the Office of Management and Financing, clearly to understand and identify options related to their facility needs. And as we completed our analysis that I'll walk through in a moment regarding financial and public benefits, and the impacts of full site development versus a portion of the site development, OMF has continued to work with the Portland Police Bureau to update and refine their facility needs to really understand if there are alternative sites available. It's our understanding, and we're happy to say, that the Police Bureau and OMF have since identified a potential alternative site for the MPU that is owned by the Police Bureau and determined that relocation costs at that site are within the city's budget. So just to go over briefly the analysis that PDC did in the past 6 months and brought before our board and was the basis for our board's recommendation, we used the opportunity kind of at the time to reassess a number of key development scenarios that we've looked at in the past and to model a number of different options, and that's what you see on the slide in front of you. The options shown here provide supporting information to your decision here today as well, with the development on the left representing a partial site development where the Mounted Patrol Unit returns to what you see as the purple building, and the scenario on the right reflecting what kind of development could occur should the full site be available for development. Full site development would provide the opportunity for 5 times more housing and affordable housing units via our inclusionary housing policy. It would allow for 2 times more active ground floor area and public open space, as well as commercial space to house approximately 100 jobs. The size of the project would also result in 3 times more equity contracting opportunities via the construction contract and approximately $1.7 million more in property taxes back to the city. On top of all the public benefits, full site development is also estimated to return approximately $15 million in land value that is otherwise kind of existing under the Mounted Patrol Unit facilities, and that would be returned back to the River District budget, where we have other key priorities that PDC and the city are jointly investing in, such as the Old Town Chinatown Action Plan, Union Station, and the Broadway Corridor Framework Plan. Throughout selective demolition, and most recently at the PDC board meeting, community stakeholders have provided consistent feedback, as Kimberly referenced, around 3 priority issues that we wanted to make sure were presented before you today. First is to maintain public access to the Greenway Trail and to the river. Second is to provide open space. And third is to preserve the iconic mill building, which is the building that you see with the water tower to the right of the rendering. As shown in the renderings that you see, the full site opportunity provides additional opportunities for public connections to the river. Particularly, I would flag, kind of if you think about the development that's occurring to the southern portion of the site, for connections to occur at 9th Avenue, which is the community's main connection both across the railroad tracks and NADA.
Could I please ask you a question
Sure.
about the public access and river access? One of the proposals that was rejected had a fairly elaborate plan to give the public access to the river. And I believe it included even a
Yeah.
pier potentially for bathing or swimming. It showed greenways at the riverfront, and that's obviously the kind of development we want to encourage. Does this new site plan that you're proposing include that opportunity? Or maybe a better way of saying it is, does it preclude that opportunity?
It does not. So I think what
It does
we-
not include or does not preclude?
It does not, it does not preclude it.
Thank you.
It does not preclude it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the old senator, the senator who got up and said, some of my friends are in favor of this and some of my friends are against it, and today I stand with my friends.
So, should council approve this action, our next steps would include determining the most appropriate development approach based on the site available for development and seeking a development partner based on that approach. We will also continue to coordinate with key bureau partners, and I would particularly flag Parks and BES, both around kind of BES access to the river and the greenway, to refine the concept, but also to respond to what we know is going to be a changing regulatory environment, both around greenway code changes and the recent FEMA biological opinion. We'll continue to engage with the community association to make sure, as we're determining our approach and our partnerships, that we're addressing their priority concerns that I just listed. And then our goal is to return to our board later this year with approval of that development approach and partners, with pre-development work occurring in 2018 and groundbreaking and construction occurring thereafter.
So let me ask you a question, and I'm throwing something at you that is frankly an issue for all city bureaus, so I'm not picking on you guys, but it's fresh in my mind. I attended a neighborhood coalition meeting last night in the Overlook neighborhood, and there was a lot of frustration expressed by people attending that meeting that they're not necessarily participants in the neighborhood association, they're not active in their neighborhood association, they don't get the neighborhood association newsletter, and therefore they felt surprised by recent city actions that they felt they should have known about as just people in the community. Are there ways that we could reach beyond the neighborhood association and think more broadly about how to get the word out and solicit input from the public?
So I think one of the things that we tried to do, particularly as selective demolition is occurring, is we had information up on the site. So I would suggest that we could do the same as we're looking at our development approach, to put information up on the site. We routinely have information up on our website that we could post as part of just that presence in the neighborhood, because we know there are a lot of folks who interact with the site who may not attend their neighborhood association
You know,
meetings.
I'd encourage us to think even more broadly than that. Yeah, there's lots of different ways of communicating online through community organizations, coalitions, associations. And I'm just wondering if you could put out a blanket, hey, are there people out there who want to get information on this that we're not reaching, and maybe have a centralized way of collecting that information so we can send it out to networks or find opinion leaders. And the only reason I mention is I'm hearing this a lot. It is not an infrequent comment that I get from people. You know, we go through our usual channels, and then people say, I never heard anything about this until it was in front of the city council and people were voting on it. So I just think we need to redouble our efforts, and I'd encourage creativity in thinking about how best to do that.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Director Branham, I have just a few questions.
Okay.
How much have we spent on this site to date total?
I'm gonna look. Well. Approaching $26 million.
So we've got $26 million invested. And I know there's been some twists and turns in how we got here. But that number, I think, is important in the context of the two recommendations you brought before us, and understanding the value of the full block, the full parcel development and the return to taxpayers versus the partial block. So I asked for that number not to criticize, but for context.
Sure.
We obviously, as a council, have been clear that we want to open access to the river. We want to facilitate the development of Greenway. We also know that that is challenging because you have to figure out how private dollars help us augment public dollars to do it. What is your vision for building out the Greenway, which I would hope would be both for pedestrians and for bicyclists?
Yeah, Lisa can speak in more detail, but we have, within the $20 million that we allocated for this project, we've earmarked about $5.5 million for the Greenway, understanding that that's the highest priority, both from a city standpoint, but also from a neighborhood standpoint. And so there are resources to proceed with that. Well, anything else you want to add on that?
The only thing I would add is we've been working pretty closely with parks to make sure that as we're moving into a partnership with a private developer, that we're making sure that we're accomplishing a greenway that the city can support as well as meets code.
And is it our vision to have a Greenway that accommodates both bikes and pedestrians?
Yes.
And hopefully somehow divided so that people can access the Greenway safely, whether they're on a bike or pedestrian. You mentioned the Bureau of Environmental Services, and it just raises a little red flag. Once upon a time, BES had committed some funds to this project. Those funds were returned to the Bureau. What's the scope of the work that might involve the Bureau of Environmental Services?
At this point, it would really focus around the implications for the site off of the FEMA biological opinion.
Okay, and that whole buyout process is also subject to litigation and further review.
That's
so we're not even sure where the
That's
boundaries are on that.
Yeah.
And then my final question is, you mentioned that the potential relocation of the mounted patrol unit was already budgeted. So what is the amount we've budgeted for that?
Somebody from the Police Bureau is here and can correct me if this is inaccurate, but
Again, folks, I just ask, please don't interrupt the testimony. Thank you.
my understanding is that the estimate for the build-out is about $500,000, and there are $400,000 that have been earmarked, and so I think the Police Bureau feels that that is a reasonable difference.
Is that, so if we adopt this resolution and it results in the relocation of the MPU to be determined, there'd be a separate process for figuring out whether there is a site, whether the city wants to invest in that site.
Yes.
The maximum amount of money that we're on the hook for going forward would be the $400,000?
So my understanding is that there was a private partner that agreed to raise additional resources to help with the build out, and that they have agreed to raise through the Friends of the Mounted Patrol $400,000. So I believe that, and again, hopefully they will correct me if I'm misstating this, but I believe that the city's investment would be $100,000 and that the private partner would invest the $400,000.
We could, if following
We
this
can
hearing,
confirm
if you could
this,
just
yes.
confirm that, because that will be important as we think about next steps.
Sure.
If there is a further action in terms of relocating and any public investment, I'd like to have a clear sense of what we're already
Absolutely.
committed to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you. And Commissioner Fish, you remember that we put in a budget note requiring them to come back to council specifically with any plans for either putting them back on here or moving them somewhere else.
Could we go back to that slide with the side-by-side comparison of the partial versus full development? Can you talk about the pretty vast difference on the full development side, 85 units versus 425?
So the way that the development is modeled is you would have on the partial development, you would have what is a brown building on the left rendering is kind of that same teal building at the north portion of the site. And so you would have only that as residential. We anticipate the flower building converting into commercial rather than residential, and so the delta between the 85 and the 425 is the ability to build on the portion of the site that is the mounted patrol unit building as well as the paddock, which you don't see in the left-hand rendering.
So given the ability to develop on the MPU and paddock, we'd have 425.
If it builds under this scenario.
And then, I'm sorry, I might have missed this detail. Do we have a developer? No, okay. Because I am also deeply interested in the equity contracting issue. And then there was okay. Oh, I see. Sorry. I just answered my question. It's the affordable units versus total housing. Okay. So it's about 20%. Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, can I just piggyback off that for a sec?
Yes.
On this slide, just to be clear, the affordable housing to total housing ratio for full development, you're assuming that the vehicle for obtaining the affordable units is inclusionary housing?
That's correct.
Okay, so that is one tool. Does that preclude the city, through the Housing Bureau, determining that there is a particular parcel that would be ripe for a full development, like the Reach development that pre-exists in the River District, where all the units are affordable?
No, it does not preclude that.
And so, Kimberly, how do we make that decision? Because ultimately,
Yeah.
at some point down the road, you'll be crafting an RFP or an
Yeah.
RFQ, and the board will be weighing in on what your priorities are and what the return you have to get. So, how do we have a chance to influence that decision down the road?
So we have, I think once we have the decision from this body, we will be able to go back and have more robust conversations with our Bureau partners to understand their interest in investing. The Housing Bureau has somewhat limited resources within the River District, but I know that through the construction excise tax and others that they have additional resources. But we would be happy to report back with them in terms of what they would like to do with this.
Good, and I would be interested in knowing, does the Housing Bureau have an interest using any of its funding tools,
Yep.
including the housing bond?
Yep. Okay.
And number two, on the different scenarios, how did the different scenarios get us towards the overall goals we have for the River District? So one of the questions that this doesn't address, but the Housing Bureau needs to address is, how many units do we have to develop on that site to stay faithful to the overall ratio that we agreed to within the River District? And that
Yeah.
could in part guide our decision about what kind of other subsidy we bring.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of this panel? Thank you, we appreciate it. Is there any public testimony on this item?
Yes, I have 7 people signed up. The first 3, please come on up, are John Hollister, Kurt Sorensen, and Kristen Delbazo.
Good morning, and if you could just make sure the green light is on and state your name for the record, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. And you have 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and that yellow light will start blinking at 3, the
3
red.
per person?
Correct.
Yeah. My name is John Hollister, and the couple things I wanted to, or the main thing I wanted to talk about is what you talked about, Mayor Wheeler, is the public awareness. And I think that has definitely been lacking in this process, as well as others that we've heard, is they mentioned that they've been working on this thing for the last 6 months. I don't really think the public has been involved in that. I was at the Pearl District Development meeting that was on February 6th, which was 2 days before they went for the board approval. And that was the first time the people on the development committee had seen the proposal, and they strongly disagreed with it. And we're kind of had the thing of, well, we're kind of going with this. And so it really wasn't, it initially came as feedback, but it quickly turned into, felt like more of a rubber stamp type of a situation. I think I don't think it's done on purpose, but I think the outreach that you're talking about would be very much appreciated. I looked at the website of the PDC, and they mentioned that they're fully committed to using every avenue to ensure full public participation on all of our projects and activities. I think those are good words, and I like to see them into practice. The one company that has probably the best mission statement of any company I've ever seen they were great. They were great words. The problem was the company was Enron, and they didn't stay true to their words. There are 4 committees. There's the NED Leadership Group. There's a leadership subcommittee. There's the Central City Budget Advisory Committee, and there's the Citizen Advisory Committee. And I looked at all the people. I don't know any of these people, and I don't think that they've shown up at any of the meetings for the Pearl District. So I'm not sure whether full development or partial development is the right thing to do, but I do know that the public has not been, especially the people that are going to be most directly impacted, have really been consulted. And so I think for you to be able to, I think there's been great questions, but for the ability for you to be able to react and make an approval there without the involvement of the public might be premature. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd just like to reflect on that a moment, since I also raised that subject. I would much prefer that communication be robust and that some of these issues get ironed out at the local level before they come to the city council. So from my perspective, it's much better to have these deliberations and debates at the community level and then bring a consensus forward to us. So there's a win-win to be had here, and again, I'll just reiterate, I am personally very interested in what further communication ideas people have. And the PDC leadership is in the room hearing you say this, so I'm sure they will redouble their efforts to reach out to your organization, and I appreciate your taking the time to be here to say that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Kurt Sorensen. I live in the Pearl District. We just moved here a little while ago, having sold a horse farm. So I'm somewhat familiar with the care and breeding and feeding of horses and the facilities required to take care of them. We had a 25-horse facility. It would not cost $400,000 to replace that. It didn't cost me that much to build it. Now, my background is construction defect litigation and hazmat litigation. So I'd like to take a look for the moment at that remaining feed mill. As I recall the history of that, that was the one that was originally going to be torn down because it was too hazardous for the workmen to go into it. I've seen the pictures of the interior, and I've seen what the last 15 years of water intrusion has done to that building. I think it's a waste of your money to do that. But going back to the site itself, I sent a letter to the council back about 2 weeks ago, March 6th, I believe, and I have a hard copy here I'd like to give to the clerk afterwards.
Great.
And what I was concerned about is that the original proposal was for that to be all open space and potentially keeping the horses there. We've gone a long ways from there to full development. And my question is, how did we get here? When we moved here, we did our due diligence. We looked at the website for the DC, the Development Commission in any event. And we took a look at the Centennial Mills framework, and we looked at Schnitzer's development proposals, and we thought, this is cool, we can live with this. So we bought. And somehow, since then, in this last year, that all disappeared. The last I had heard in 2015 is that they were going to go ahead with some form of parkland proposal, open land proposal. Hasn't happened. And what the effect of a full development of that site would be to continue the concrete and brick wall that runs from Steel Bridge all the way up to Centennial Mills. This is really your last chance to have a green open area by the river for the people in North Pearl, Slab Town, and beyond. They come right straight down Overton, hit 9th, cross the street at 9th, and they're in a park. The parkway along the river there is about 4 feet wide. You can walk on it. You can dodge the bikes. The bikes can dodge the pedestrians, but it's not really wide. There are some turnouts, but not many. A lot of it's boardwalk. And the whole length from the steel bridge up, there are maybe a half dozen benches for people to sit on. I think that my point is that it should be open land. I suggest you go back to the framework.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. I'm Kristen Del Balzo. I'm not a lobbyist, merely a citizen of the Pearl District. My concern with the two options that were presented today, with all due respect to the PDC, truly is that they are so extreme. And you look at $15 million compared to $500,000, and I think the natural inclination is to, of course, go with the $15 million option because it looks so attractive. And really, in order to really, I think, respect and honor the original 5 tenets of the framework, when you just look at those renderings, I don't know how you can say it's going to provide open space and capture history, define a community focal point, strengthen connections, embrace sustainability, and provide river access at full redevelopment. All I see are buildings and some trees. So what I'm hoping by being here today is that you take a look at another option that is not full redevelopment, that is something, a happy medium, where there is actual open space. I understand that there have to be dollars generated here in order to fund these areas, but surely there is something other than a bunch of tall buildings going up in this alleged open space that was part of the original framework, which is what, we're looking for basically. Because when I look at this, which is still up on this screen here, I don't know what you guys have, but when I look at this, I see buildings. I don't see green space. So I don't know how this is open space. Surely there is something between what's on the left and what's on the right. And maybe it is without the mounted patrol, because it sounds like they're not returning and they have a new happy place. Unfortunately, some of us would love to have them back. But if they're not going to be there, surely there's something in between what's on the left and what's on the right that can still generate funds but still honors those original frameworks. So my goal for being here today is that you not give your blessing to just either full or mounted patrol, that the blessing would be, let's look at other options besides full redevelopment. Surely there's something partial that doesn't include the mounted patrol that you guys would want to see, that also includes input from citizens so that we have some say as to what is going in there. So it's not a bunch of, 12-story buildings.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your testimony. Thank you. Next 3, please.
Next 3 are Lightning Super Watchdog, Glenn Traeger, and David Dysert.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Glenn Traeger. I live in Northwest Portland. I'm actually on the board of directors of the Pearl Neighborhood Association, but I'm here just to represent myself as a citizen. This site on the Centennial Mills is looking for a vision. And I'd like to share my vision with you and why my vision is such as it is. First of all, Northwest Portland is probably going through the fastest development as far as residential of probably any area within the city. There's thousands of new people going to be moving into the northwest part of Portland that need recreation and recreational space. The Centennial Mills is a good site that could provide that additional green space for these thousands of new people, citizens that are moving into our neighborhood. Second, as you probably are aware, this site isn't part of the Portland Harbor area. And as you know, there's going to be $1 billion spent cleaning up the Portland Harbor based from our citizens and from our industries along the harbor. To me, it's a crying shame that we don't have any access to utilize this new clean harbor water that we have. In fact, I would think this could be a place where we can celebrate the cleaning of the Portland Harbor and allow people access and maybe a water park or different types of water activities to celebrate this clean water that we're going to be having within the Portland Harbor. And then lastly, one of the minor things that people don't realize is that this is a good thing that the city of Portland has done. In fact, a fantastic thing. Last year, the Bureau of Transportation re-striped Nato Parkway to just allow one lane of cars, and then they have a bikeway. And right now, that bikeway is probably the best greenway that we have in the city of Portland. I ride my bicycle east side, west side. I use it quite a bit. I probably ride maybe a couple 100 miles every month. And quite frankly, NATO right now is the easiest, safest way to go from northwest Portland to downtown. Now, in order to make that, in the initial framework plan, they had a bridge crossing NATO Parkway from the Fields Park to Centennial Mills. And I think that would be an important addition to Centennial Mills development site to allow residents and pedestrians to go across the railroad tracks and NATO Parkway into the Centennial Mills. And plus it would facilitate bicycle transportation. All, people from all northwest Portland could come to the Fields Park, cross the bridge, get onto NATO Parkway, and get downtown very fast and safe. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Super Watchdog. I want to make it very clear, I do not represent any developers. I'm not on the payroll of any developer. In my position, you had a developer in line with some of the most creative ideas out there, with the experience, the money, the know-how, how to make this into a masterpiece, which what it should be made into. Respecting the public, respecting the green space, beautiful gardens, access to the water with the pier by boat, walking our bridge across. Everything was very well put together, very creative ideas based upon experience of many, many years to get to that place. For whatever reason, Patrick Quinton could not put this deal together, and you are a disgrace. You may not like me to say that, but you are a disgrace. This deal needed to be put together with harsh development. The city needed to come up with additional funding, be a little creative. The developer is there. Late Art DeMuro wanted this to happen, preserve some of the buildings, and this is the direction it should go. Now we have the demolition cost to maybe back out of the deal to get a little bit closer on the numbers. Again, create a masterpiece here, somebody that knows how to do that and respect the public and respect the surrounding area and the river and everything else that we have here. The horses, move on, your time has passed, and quit, in my opinion, by having those horses, devaluing the property intentionally for somebody else to step in position. As you know, harsh development did not want to have the horses in place. I absolutely agree with them. I hope they end up with this project. And again, in the world of real estate, karma. You ended up with that U.S. Post Office building by shifting this deal to the side. Karma. You ended up getting TIF money for the multi-family housing facility by TPI, Bud Clark Commons. Karma can come back around and get you in the end. I would suggest you treat the developer fair with his creative ideas and allow him to proceed forward on this project and do what needs to be done here and create a masterpiece, which I think he is the only one in this city that can do and has the money and the backing and the experience to get the job done. If the city doesn't mess around with him and throw a wrench into this game to jump over to that post office, jump over to that overpriced Troutdale property, and Patrick Quinton, enjoy your retirement. You are a disgrace.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners and Mayor Wheeler. My name is David Dysert. I'm a member of the Pearl District Neighborhood Association's Planning and Transportation Committee. And as such, I do appreciate your comment, Mayor Wheeler, about outreach, because I think this is not a Pearl District property. This isn't a pet project for the neighborhood. This is a regional site of significance, a rich, rich history. Chet Orloff can speak eloquently on this, and if you haven't heard the rich history of this site, we've lost a lot of our history. It's the last site on the river. It's also a regional significant site for the amenity. So I'd like to view this project in that site. It's really beyond the neighborhood. I'd like to read the letter that the Pearl District Neighborhood Association has submitted to you. Dear Mayor and City Commissioners, the Pearl District Neighborhood Association would like to remind you of the public goals for Centennial Mills and ask that they be folded into any future development through either the sales agreement and or title of the property. The city and public have spent collectively too much time, effort, and money of this last vestige of Portland's history to give up on the goals that have driven the project from the beginning. The 5 redevelopment principles from the 2006 Centennial Mills Framework Plan are: provide open space, capture history, define a community focal point, strengthen connections, embrace sustainability. The site was originally bought to become a public park by City Council. It would be a shame if it ended up a privatized enclave on the river, especially as it is one of the last places where Portlanders can connect to the river that runs through our city. We urge you to make sure these principles are upheld in the future of the site. We urge you to make sure the public is involved with any development of the site through the master plan process as outlined in City Code. And then if I can put on my public citizen hat and speak as just a citizen, lately we hear a lot about Portland losing its soul, and it's not really about rent prices. It's the realization that we've lost leadership and vision. We don't talk about ideas anymore. We talk about budgets. We used to have it. We traded a proposed interstate for light rail. We removed a highway and built a front yard. We built a transit mall and implemented a cap on parking spaces, of all things. And we built a living room. Pioneer Courthouse Square. That wasn't easy. You know what was easy? The business folks wanted that block to be a parking garage. Think about that. Think about what our downtown would be without its living room. Portland built a public square when no one was building public squares. They were building private shopping malls. And it's not just about the bricks. It's about the idea, a place for the public, a place for everyone. Oregon is one of only 2 states that guarantee public access to its entire coastline. We should think about our river in the same terms. One of the strongest planning principles from that era is to celebrate the river. The Centennial Mills site has been a constant feature in those plans for decades. This site is about celebrating our great river, the very reason the city exists, and the history of that city is all but forgotten as soft wheat has given way to hard hats. Portland will be judged by the stewardship of our assets. By willful neglect, we've allowed this great asset to literally decay into ruin. Now we have 1 building left. Centennial Mill is not a Pearl District project. It's a regional site of significance. Are we going to lose this treasure and wall off the river with yet another apartment building built on a budget to maximize return on investment? Are we going to lose this treasure?
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Yes.
Thank you.
That would be the easy thing to do. Do the hard thing, capture history, provide open space, direct access to the river. Please don't let our city be reduced to a pro forma spreadsheet. I humbly ask you to provide leadership and vision before it's too late. Thank you very much.
Excellent statement. Thank you. And shameless plug, I hope you will have a chance at some point to hear the speech I'm going to give at the City Club on Friday.
I will be there.
Shameless plug. I apologize, but good. Thank you. I am speaking on Friday at the City Club.
You didn't get your invite?
Does it have something to do with the State of the City address?
Indeed it does. It does, Commissioner. Friday,
And
City Club, and it'll be online.
Just so you know, I want to state for the
Cityclub
public that
dot
I'm
org.
going to be on a plane to Chicago at that time, which was booked many months ago. So I'm
Cancel it.
I'm going to see my son.
No, okay.
So no, I'm not going to cancel it.
Very good. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Next up,
The last person who signed up is Sarah Iannarone.
Sarah, are you here? There she is. Very good. Good morning.
Thanks, wow. Good morning, good to see you all. I'm here, thank you for all your service. I actually worked with PDC a few years ago to rethink the strategic plan, and I know that equity is at the top of their agenda, and if you've been to some of their outreach lately, they are doing a really good job, I think, trying to get folks engaged. The Broadway Corridor community meeting that they held was very diverse and very robust, so I want to give them a shout out for that. But one of the things that I'm here about is on behalf of Oregon Harbor of Hope. It's a nonprofit organization that's come together to supplement the public sector activities to address our housing and homelessness crisis. And one of the things that they're requesting is that you consider converting in the short term the MPU, the horse facility barn, to R2D2 facility temporarily. The folks at R2D2 are very concerned about that April 1st deadline looming. And we're thinking about eviction and where these folks can go. And it's our understanding that the structure there is sound and habitable, and that there's going to be a significant time lag between now and when construction is going to be potentially started there. And so this is actually a very viable option for moving R2D2 in the short term. Oregon Harbor of Hope has agreed to convert this facility with the necessary amenities to house R2D2 if the city is agreeable to this. For up to 18 months with a tight move-out agreement, if you're interested. I think this is something that's very important. I mean, we can talk about relocating horses, but we have people sleeping outdoors. And so if we have properties like this available and we have short-term crises at hand, we need to be very creative, especially on taking up our private sector partners who are willing to help us pay for some of this to get those folks off the street. We're potentially going to have between 80 and 100 people additional sleeping out of doors if R2D2 is evicted. So I would encourage you to consider this. Thank you for listening to me, and keep up the good work.
Sarah, since you're here, can I ask you a follow-up question? So when Oregon Harbor of Hope had its sites on Terminal 1 North, one of the things that we did is we took a look at the comprehensive plan, we took a look at the zoning code, and we identified some barriers. I'm not familiar with whatever the zoning is at the site that you've recommended. Do you know whether there are any comprehensive plan or zoning issues we'd have to address as part of that relocation?
I do not. And I also encourage you to use the state of emergency to suspend those temporarily, especially while we're just looking for a place for people to sleep in the interim for a permanent location for R2D2. This would just be a temporary siting for R2D2 while we find a permanent location.
And thank you for coming. I had actually thought of that as well. And when you say that the Harbor of Hope is offering to build facilities, or to do any facilities, what do you mean by that?
Similar to the Terminal 1 site, we would put in for the renovations that are necessary to make that a temporary shelter. So there's nothing permanent, but there are like temporary cots and things like that and other things to make that into the rest stop that Oregon Harbor of Hope is willing to work with the city on making sure that they're there for the folks to relocate there.
Thank you, but just so you know, that doesn't fit the Right to Dream model, that they don't, that they're not looking for indoor shelter. So I think it's an interesting concept to explore. It would not be any kind of thing that would be going inside with cots.
Well, but R2D2 does have infrastructure. There's shelving. I mean, basically what they said is converting it with the necessary amenities that R2D2 would require. This is about Oregon Harbor of Hope helping R2D2 relocate based on what they need. So it's not superimposing a shelter model that Oregon Harbor of Hope sees fit, but rather giving them the resources that they need in lieu of public resources.
Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Charles Bridgecrane Johnson. And that, my dear friend Mayor Wheeler, is why she had my vote instead of you about 11 months ago. $26 million that we somehow magically need to recoup while we deny R2D2 100 people a place to sleep. You know, occasionally we come up with interesting things. We did something with the Erickson apartments, But wouldn't it be a shame if a real audit of the City of Portland and the Portland Development Commission showed we had actually outlaid more cash for the sheltering of horses than of human beings? And we can make all kinds of excuses that, oh, well, Home Forward does that and the Portland Housing Bureau is out of the direct housing business. But when the Portland Development Commission comes up here and says, we've been futzing around with this precious industrial land to the tune of $26 million, and as former mayoral candidate Ms. Anarone pointed out, just in the last few months we've said, hey, homeless people, you can't sleep at Terminal 1 North because bureaucratic BS. We can't find an appropriate shelter coordinating management person to do it for you. Or, oh my God, we got to protect the industrially zoned land. But here, I don't see, a flour mill is pretty industrial. But now, because we need our $26 million back, it doesn't have to stay industrial. It can be mixed use and it can be residential. So, when extremely poor and homeless people, now I understand, one thing that's positive here is Nick Fish, maybe he has a dream that somehow we can recoup the $26 million and still have projects on that site that are 100% below MFI housing. That would be awesome. I don't know. Maybe it can be done. But that's really what we should be looking at. When Lightning Super Watchdog testified, he talked about a premier project. But for God's sakes, if we can put rich people in that ugly piece of crap Death Star on the other side of the river, we can build an ugly Death Star and let some poor people sleep inside and shower and have their own homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the...
That's all who signed
all
up.
right, there's a request for staff to come back and potentially address some of these issues.
No, she was.
Commissioner Fish.
Kimberly, I think this is for you. A gentleman testified earlier about getting access to the river from the park, which is called the Fields.
Yeah.
And since I was in charge of the Parks Bureau when we did that, and that was a very difficult park to do because it required a lot of public subsidy,
Yes.
a lot of work with the developers, and it was an expense. It was a wonderful park.
Yes.
Built the community specifications.
Do you have your mic on?
Thank you. It required an enormous public subsidy, obviously. As part of the design for that park, there was a placeholder bridge put in,
Yes.
which basically ran from the dog run across the tracks to Centennial Mills. And for some reason, it was part of the design, but there was no way to fund it, so it was shelved. Since someone has raised that, I think I know the answer, but
Yeah.
could you address the status of that bridge?
Yeah, absolutely. So the bridge, I think, was estimated to add about $2 million to the cost of the Centennial Mills build-out. And so it goes on the list of things that I think we will want to talk to the public about and to our Bureau partners and private partners about, what do we see as the vision for the site, and what resources do we have, both public and private, to put to work at the site to achieve those visions.
Thank you. What's the timeline? The resolution talks about building up towards some kind of development plan for the site. And so it's 2018, 2019. And so when might you go out with an RFP or an RFQ?
So probably in late 2017 or early 2018. I think we do, we do want to do robust community outreach. This conversation has been really important in terms of being able to set expectations for the community. There's been a lot of support for keeping the MPU at this site, and so we wanted to be able to know what the future was in order to be able to re-engage with the RFP.
All right, so Mayor, I'd like to offer an amendment. I think it's a friendly amendment, but Kimberly will tell us if it's a friendly or not. It's at the resolution, it's an additional be it further resolved. The City Council directs PDC and the Portland Housing Bureau to review all options for maximizing the development of housing affordable for people earning between 0 and 60% of median family income, and to report their recommendations to council.
Yeah, I mean,
So it is your opinion that that
Yes.
is not a substantive amendment?
No,
Yes.
Very good. So
Yes.
then, unless I hear any objection, I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Very good.
I have a couple
Please.
questions. Certainly heard about Centennial Mills over the years, and, but I think the whole process predates most of us who are sitting up here. So if you could just give a quick timeline, when it came into the city's possession, was it purchased specifically for park use? When did the zoning change, et cetera? Just kind of wrap up some of the loose ends that were left by
Sure.
commenters.
Sure. So it was acquired back in 2000,
Okay.
and it was acquired to be open space. So it was anticipated to be the terminus of the 3 parks in the Pearl District, to be completely open space. So that answers that question. Then what happened is the MPU was placed on it as an interim measure. The neighborhood kind of grew around it. If you imagine what the Pearl District looked like back in 2000, you had kind of much fewer people kind of living in the neighborhood, and so
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I lived.
yeah.
right
So
there,
as folks moved into the neighborhood and started working in the neighborhood, in 2005, it's when council gave the Planning Bureau and PDC the directive to complete a framework plan that looked at options for both open space and development on the site that allowed for preservation, particularly of the flour mill. And so there's a number of scenarios that are contemplated in the framework plan, a number of development scenarios, and it landed on these 5 principles as the guiding principles for development. We went out with a solicitation based on those. The challenges to the solicitation is the most immediate one, it needed a $37 million subsidy, and we have $20 million in the budget, and so we've often had a conversation about what are the trade-offs, because we've made commitments to Old Town Chinatown, we have commitments on the post office site, and ultimately kind of it would come at the cost of other investments that we're making in the River District.
Okay. And, I mean, how would you respond to members of the public who just gave commentary, feeling that the public wasn't engaged and wasn't involved in this decision-making process, and feel perhaps cheated out of a park or green space?
So what I would start by saying is that the decision today does not preclude having the space be an open space. So the decision that we were bringing forward both to the Pearl District was the analysis that was done by GBD at a high level, just to show the development feasibility of whether you keep the MPU or not. So it could still be an open space. The conversation with the Pearl District actually was meant to happen in January, and it was snowed out. So it really was unfortunate that it was only a few days before. That wasn't our intention. So, we will have additional conversations. We need to talk to our Bureau partners about what resources they might have to put to work here as well, and we look forward to that engagement.
Thank you.
Out of the abundance of caution, I've been pinged by legal counsel that we should still take a vote on Commissioner Fish's amendment. He's moved it. Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll on the amendment.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. And so if I could just ask a clarifying, the amendment is on the table. If I could just ask a clarifying question to what
Absolutely.
the answer you just gave to Commissioner Udaley. So the questions and issues people just raised about green space in the development proposals that will be judged and will be vetted to the public, that is still very much on the table.
It is still very much on
Very
the table.
good. And I just want to say, since there were some people here who said they felt unhappy that the harsh development proposal fell by the wayside, I think it's well known that I'm one of those people. I actually thought it was a very visionary proposal, and I particularly liked the access that was being provided to the waterway. And I concur with those who acknowledge this isn't just another development site. This truly is one of our last waterfront parcels, and I hope we have a vision there that's big enough that we can all be proud of it and take advantage of some of the opportunities that a waterfront parcel offers. So I'll certainly be keeping a close watch on that. Any further questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Fritz.
Well, thank you for this very clear presentation. Mayor, I think that Ms. Diana Roan has solved the problem of getting public attention on this site by saying that it could perhaps be used for Right to Dream 2. So I'm sure that there'll be many more people participating if that's even being thought about. This is a concept plan. I support the concepts. I particularly like the step down to the river, 4 stories maximum. The greenway and the access to it is obviously going to be very key. I do support not having the mounted patrol unit on this site. It's very much a waste of valuable real estate. We're not deciding about the mounted patrol unit today. That will be part of the budget discussion. I believe that it's now sometimes something that, if although many people appreciate it, we just can't afford it in this day and age for multiple reasons. But that, as I say, that discussion will happen in the budget process. I want to be very clear that there is no money available in parks for a huge expenditure here. I mean, the $5.5 million that was mentioned for greenway development hopefully will be enough to cover all of that. But if we start adding multiple other things like docks and river access, etc., down to the water, it may get much more expensive. And given that we have 3 beautiful parks in the Pearl, Tanner Springs, Jameson Square, and the Fields is very close to this. As long as we have the access greenways between the buildings, maybe moving them around a bit to make that all one consolidated space should be considered. It seems to me that we can get good development, which will give significant affordable housing and then other valuable property, and have the green space as well. So I'm very much in support of the proposal. Aye.
Fish?
Thanks for a good presentation today. So, once upon a time, I hoped we could maintain most of the historic structures and figure out a way to make that pencil out. In fact, it was Mayor Tom Potter who was a great champion of that, who thought it could even be a center for art. And there was talk of a museum and all kinds of amenities. Times change, markets change, city needs change. I'm pleased that this resolution does not foreclose a broader community conversation. And I agree with the folks from the Pearl who came in and said it should be a citywide conversation. One of the challenges with urban renewal is it's a source of money that's been robust for us to do things, but it's limited to 15% of the city. And I think we have to the extent possible, always think citywide, even though we're spending within the district, and that sometimes creates tension within districts. Mm-hmm. We do have 3 world-class parks, which we've made enormous investments in. And if I lived in that neighborhood, I understand why having more green spaces along the river would be very appealing. Whether we can afford that and balance it with our other needs is part of the process that you will address. I join with my colleague, Commissioner Fritz, though, in saying that we have a chance to have a world-class greenway and to begin to think about connecting because we're building out infrastructure along the river there. And to the individual who testified about a post-Superfund future, yeah, we hope the river is a healthier place for everyone, and there should be river access. It is very important to me that if housing is a part of the plan, that we go beyond the inclusionary housing policy and put as much affordable housing as possible. One of the things that we're proud of in the River District is when you walk around the community, it's very hard to tell what is the affordable housing. In fact, I brought visitors in and said, just tell me which of these buildings is 100% affordable. Tell me which one is built by the Housing Authority. Tell me which was the region. Most people can't tell. And that's because we've insisted that the quality of the housing within that district be of the similar kind to everything else, because we welcome everybody into the district. And we did set a pretty high marker for the ratio of affordable housing. And this may be our last great chance to sort of reach some of the ratios that we pledged, or maybe even exceed them. So I would like the Housing Bureau to be creative in looking about how we could capture the value. And to someone who said we don't want another gated community or sort of privileged enclave, let me turn that around. I think if you are a low-income household in this community, you have every right to be able to live on the river along with other people. So let's flip that critique and make it a welcoming place for everybody, so that it's affordable for people that could have one of the great addresses and views overlooking the river. And finally, you know, we don't have the money to do another park, and I want to compliment Commissioner Fritz. There's whole swaths of East Portland that don't have parks. And Commissioner Fritz has said we are going to build out equity in East Portland as a priority using systems development charge money generated elsewhere. And there's a lot of people, particularly low-income Portlanders, that don't enjoy parks the way people do in the inner core of the city, where we have more parks. And I applaud her for prioritizing parks for people in places that they haven't existed. But that means dedicating most of the discretionary dollars to do that, and it comes at the cost of other kinds of things. And finally, as to the bridge, it would be nice to have a safe access other than people just going down and crossing the rail tracks. But that's a $2 or $3 million amenity, and I think it's highly unlikely we're going to have the resources for it. So as you do the planning, I think it is important to think, how do people connect safely? And that is an active railway. So how do you get across, whether you're by walking or biking or whatever, and make sure it's safely connected, because we want the river connected to the rest of the river district. Good hearing. I appreciate the presentation, and I vote aye.
Saltzman?
Well, I'm more than happy to support this framework plan. Although I would openly question, I guess sometimes, I mean, the problem with Centennial Mills is really that there's been too much designing it on high with our hopes and aspirations, and nothing's penciled yet. We spent $26 million. We asked Harsh Investment to come up with $37 million of their own money. They walked away. So, you know, in my mind, something's got to give to make something happen here. And, you know, I do wonder, I think there was interesting testimony about the status of the flour mill. And, you know, I've been inside the flour mill at one time. You know, I do wonder, you know, I appreciate history as much as anybody else, but if this becomes an albatross around the neck of anything happening here, then I do think we have to take a look at whether the flour mill needs to be designed out and something else happen there, something catalytic. So that's just one thought I have, but I do want to go forward, but it does seem like we keep running into loggerheads on something happening here, and so hopefully something will spark here and happen. Aye.
You, Daly?
Thanks for the presentation. First, I want to start off by saying that I certainly sympathize with some of the issues brought forward by the public today. I do agree that the city needs to do a better job getting information out to the public and engaging the public in these conversations. I also share concern around historic preservation and preserving or creating green space and providing river access. And I've been thinking about the comment made by one of the community members about this being beyond the neighborhood, and that cuts both ways. As Commissioner Fish mentioned, we already have a series of lovely parks in the Pearl District, while some of our communities are lacking. We're in the middle of a unprecedented housing crisis, so maximizing the resources we have left to create housing is important. And I want to mention that I lived a few blocks away from the Pearl District from the late 80s until about 2007. So I've certainly been witness to the changes there. I was priced out of that neighborhood along with hundreds of artists and other former occupants of the Pearl, which there were lots before that was developed. We lost an extraordinary kind of folk art site in the Lovejoy columns. So the point is, the city's gone through a lot of changes. I haven't even touched on what's happened in Northeast Portland. So I think we do need to keep a broader perspective in mind and set our priorities and think about what kind of city we want to live in. And it should come as no surprise that my priority is affordable housing. So I'm happy to vote aye.
Wheeler?
So I'll just keep my comments brief. I want to support what Commissioner Fritz said that was seconded by Commissioner Fish with regard to the order of things. There is no question that we need to address equities in park services in East Portland, but I do not want to foreclose opportunities to reinvigorate our waterway. I think we've turned our backs on the Willamette for too long. We've made a lot of critical infrastructure investments. The three former current city commissioners who've been here a while have made significant investments in cleanup of both the river restoration opportunities, water quality through the Big Pipe project and other infrastructure projects. And so my point here isn't necessarily that we're going to put in piers and swimming facilities today. What I just don't want us to do is wall off that opportunity either for us if the resources become available, and certainly not for future generations, because we have certainly seen as we look at the riverscape today that a lot of those opportunities that could have been aren't, because those opportunities were foreclosed before we ever got here. So that's my larger point with regard to the riverfront and water access. I'll stop there and just say the resolution is adopted as amended. Thank you for a great presentation. I appreciate it. It was really well done. Next item, please.
Item 268, authorize conveyance of city-owned property located at 3368 Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard to PCRI Northeast Housing LLC, and funding in an amount not to exceed $7,350,000 to its affiliate MLK and Cook Apartments LP for the construction of a new affordable multifamily mixed-use housing development located in the Interstate Corridor Urban Renewal Area.
Director Krieger, good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler, members of council. Kurt Krieger, Housing Bureau Director. I'm pleased today to bring the so-called grant warehouse forward for a discussion. This was a site that was conveyed by the Portland Development Commission to the Housing Bureau in 2010 when the Housing Bureau subsumed the housing responsibilities of PDC. Its property is now known as Beatrice Morrow, and that will be explained later. But it's important for you to know that I began work on August 15th, 2015, and this project interview was held on my first day of work. So I'm proud that, you know, something that I got to see at its inception is now ready for full council review. The ordinance that you are approving conveys the city-owned site to Portland Community Reinvestment Initiative, along with $7,350,000, which is the necessary equity to make the project financially feasible. The property is worth $4.1 million, and we are contributing that as equity to the project to make sure that the project is indeed affordable. This is the first multifamily rental property in Northeast Portland financed directly by the city, to which the preference policy will apply. There are some properties that we finance indirectly through tax abatement that are using this, but this is the first one where we have a direct financial stake.
Could you say a little bit about the preference policy, just so
just to frame the issue, it's a path to return for former residents or the offspring of former residents of North and Northeast Portland who were physically displaced through actions of the city, either directly through condemnation or indirectly through economic reinvestment in the area, which caused people to have to leave the area. Folks will essentially be sorted on the basis of a priority system whereby people who are most impacted receive the greatest number of points. It is administered in a colorblind and race-neutral manner. It meets the Federal Fair Housing Act, but it also gives people a path to return to the neighborhood, many of whom are people of color, but not entirely. The Housing Bureau recommended to Commissioner in charge of housing at the time, Commissioner Salzman, that a team of Portland Community Reinvestment Initiatives, PCRI, and Girding Edelin be selected as the co-developers. This was a site for which there was competition, and other capable developers were deemed to be less qualified than this team. They brought with them Carlton Hart Architects, a minority-owned architectural firm, and Colas Construction, a minority-owned contractor. 24 of the 480 residential units in the proposed property will be affordable families at or below 30% of the median family income, and there's more detail on this to follow. I would like to introduce Dr. Bishop Stephen Holt, who is the chair of the North-Northeast Oversight Committee, and he will then introduce Maxine Fitzpatrick, Executive Director of PCRI, Travis Phillips, and Sarah Zahn at Gertie Edelin. And I'll stand by if there are questions, but I would like to make room for Maxine and the other team members to come up front.
Great, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I am Dr. Stephen Holt. I chair the Oversight Committee for North-Northeast Housing Strategies, and it seems like we were just having a conversation a few days ago in regard to the importance and the significance of affordable housing, and specifically affordable housing for those who have dealt with gentrification and displacement. As you know, Portland is one of the most gentrified cities in the nation, and our history has been significant. When we talk about this opportunity, we are addressing some of the most marginalized individuals and most vulnerable families in our community. The exciting thing about this particular project is it is the first project associated with the dollars that have been allocated toward affordable housing. I'll make two statements in regard to that. One is the dollars that have been allocated, while a good beginning, are by no means enough. The need is far beyond what we are presently able to address. It is good that we are doing something, but it is just that. It is the beginning, and I hope we will find other ways to support and move forward an aggressive agenda that is an equitable agenda to assist the families that have been impacted, displaced, and remain vulnerable. It is a wonderful thing that this particular property is coming online, and we are absolutely enthusiastic about it. The Oversight Committee is in 100% support for what this opportunity will provide. And the hope is that this will be a great example of what can be done with political will, with community engagement, and with economic support. So, with that being said, I want to introduce Maxine Fitzpatrick, who is the Executive Director of PCRI, Travis Phillips, and Sarah Zahn of Gertie Edelin.
Thank you, Dr. Holt.
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And if you could just state your names for the record, I think you all know how this gets done. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor, and good morning, Commissioners, each and every one of you. My name is Maxine Fitzpatrick, and I'm the Executive Director of Portland Community Reinvestment Initiative, commonly known in the community as PCRI.
And I'm Travis Phillips, the Director of Housing Development for PCRI.
And I'm Sarah Zahn with Gertie Edelin. We're the development consultant for PCRI for this project.
Thank you.
Yep, that's the one. Great.
Okay.
We're getting our presentation to come
Great,
up
thank you.
for you all.
Well, while that is
Huh. We've got it on our screen.
Okay, I think it's just warming up. Here it comes.
Oh, it's just warming up.
Thank you. Again, what we have before us is the Beatrice Morrow. I would be remiss if I didn't start out by talking a bit about the name, the Beatrice Morrow, and giving our thank you to Senator Margaret Carter, who actually informed us through one of her family members about about Beatrice Morrow. And many of us, many residents, and I don't know about the local electeds, had no idea who Beatrice Morrow was. And just in case you don't, Beatrice Morrow was an African-American female. She was a lawyer. She lived in Portland, Oregon, and in 1929, she ran for elected office, state office. And in 1929, African Americans were not allowed to vote in the state, so that was pretty spectacular. So she has a really rich history of being committed to the rights of African American residents, and I would encourage you to read a bit more about her. She's one of our hidden heroes, or perhaps hidden figures, and we're happy to share her in her contribution to Portland by honoring her by naming the building our first new construction development after her. I'm here today to just thank you all for listening to PCRI's thoughts about the Beatrice Morrow and encourage the conveyance of the financing that is currently needed to make this a reality. I have with me today Travis Phillips, who's PCRI's Housing Development Director, and he's going to share some information about the development. He's doing an extraordinary job of advancing it, along with Sarah Zahn, and it's been a really pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to work with Gertland and Edlin and have Sarah lead this project. It has we've enjoyed it, and it hasn't been as difficult as many would think it would be for a community-based, culturally specific organization like PCRI. We're happy about it because it represents the first project that we've done of this magnitude since 2000, which was a preservation of Park Terrace, which was 88-unit development, and we were really, really proud of that, and we got the Governor's Livability Award for the preservation of that project. And here we are 17 years later, and we're doing our second big project. And for that, I want to convey our thanks to the community, to the electeds, starting with at the time, Mayor Hales and Commissioner Sussman. And I have to say, Mayor Wheeler, you and Commissioner Udaley have picked up without missing a beat and supported PCRI as we advance this initiative. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You want me to dive in here?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'll give you, I think a number of the members of council already know a little bit of the background here on the development, but I'm going to give you just a quick snapshot for those folks who maybe don't know. But the former Grant Warehouse site that will be the future Beatrice Morrow development came about because of really some community outcry about public investment not necessarily being made where the community felt that it was needed most, and not necessarily being representative of the community's needs and interests in North and Northeast Portland, and particularly among the African American community. And so, to skip forward just a bit on that, the Portland Housing Bureau issued an RFQ, a request for qualifications, for development teams who could be most sensitive to and responsive to the needs of the community, both in terms of providing affordable housing in a neighborhood that has seen some of the most incredible rent increases in the city, and in a neighborhood where a lot of displacement has happened involuntarily among its residents due to eviction, those rent increases, and a number of other factors. PCRI coalesced with Girding Edlin, Colas Construction, and Carlton Hart Architects with really a shared vision of being responsive to those community needs, making sure to outreach to the community about what their needs are, listening very closely at each of the community forums that Portland Housing Bureau held to also get the feedback of the community about what was needed and what was desired from the historic Northeast Portland community. And then to think about as well, not just the housing, but what else could be provided in this development to really respond to the needs of the neighborhood, and how we could do something greater with the public money and with our private money to really provide opportunity in the community. And so it was through that conversation that we all really had a lot of shared goals about really uplifting historically underutilized firms and minority businesses,
and providing that, that benefit back to the community. So you'll see the development that, that we have created since being awarded that RFQ will be a 5-story mixed-use building. It's 88,000 square feet in total. It includes 80 residential units, which are a majority of 2- and 3-bedroom family-size units. That was something that, that definitely came out being very important through those community forums that the Housing Bureau held, and what we've also heard through our residents and prospective residents. You heard Commissioner Krieger talk a little bit about it utilizing Portland Housing Bureau's preference policy, and really also fulfilling the intents of PCRI and the community that we've served for 25 years to give priority for historic residents of Northeast Portland who have been involuntarily displaced to be able to come back and live in a familiar neighborhood with familiar surroundings and supports. Another item that came out in the community forums and through our conversations with the community was to really provide a large community space. That'll be used both for resident programming to support the needs of the residents who are living in the building, and also be made available for neighborhood use. As we know, many of the large community spaces in the neighborhood just don't exist anymore. We do have courtyard outdoor space and a play area, obviously very important for a family development. And the parking that we've developed on the site does actually exceed the code requirements that were in place at the point in time that we applied for the permits, and obviously is quite a bit more now than what would be required if we applied for permit at this time, which, being on a very well-served transit corridor on MLK, actually wouldn't require any parking if we were applying for permit at this point.
So how many spots are you going to be providing?
So there are 29 parking spaces plus 1 dedicated loading space. So you can see we've just got a couple renderings and showing where the site is located there on MLK Boulevard between Cook and Ivy Streets, just about a block south of Fremont.
And it's a gorgeous building. If we could just go back to it, what we proposed. So it's just really nice to have had the engagement of the community in making the decisions about what type of environment they wanted to live. And we put forth a lot of effort to make sure that that happened. It's going to be historical, it's going to be cultural, and it's going to be diverse so that everybody that lives in that building feels good. We had to comment a few minutes ago about affordable housing. It has always been our intent not to be able to identify affordable housing just from the way it's designed and the way it looks. And so I think that the community and the city who supported PCRI in this development will be very pleased with not only how the structure is being built, but how it will be maintained by PCRI as we go forward.
Maxine, I'm very glad you said that because, you know, let's take East Portland, for example. Most of the complaints we get from people about quote-unquote affordable housing in East Portland is crap built by the private sector. It's built with a 15-year horizon at a different time when the zoning allowed for a different relationship to the sidewalk. That's poorly maintained. And frankly, when I think of the work that like Girding Edlin has done in partnership with other distinguished nonprofits, and LifeWorks comes to mind, when you go look at the LifeWorks Girding Edlin Home Forward development, which is not that far from this beautiful building that you're adding, I defy someone to be able to say that's deeply affordable housing for low-income families. Instead, what they see is a beautiful building, and this is truly a beautiful building.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I don't necessarily want to get into every last detail of the affordability, but you can see in front of you that one of our goals was really to provide a building that served a mix of income levels. We know that there's a huge need to serve families at the lowest income levels in our city, and we're doing that both through some subsidized project-based Section 8, some units subsidized with project-based Section 8 that we applied to Home Forward for and have been awarded. We have some additional units that will serve residents also at that lowest income level at or below 30% AMI. And then we've distributed throughout all the different bedroom sizes a number of other income levels to really disperse. So it's not centralizing poverty. We're centralizing poverty. We're trying not to centralize poverty is what I was trying to say.
Can I ask a question, since you've got,
Yes.
you're assuming a Section 8 voucher?
Mhm.
Home Forward has come forward anticipating some of the cuts at the federal level and some of the other turbulence. But Home Forward has made a huge commitment to those vouchers so we can get the affordable units. Are these locked in, these vouchers?
We are currently at the National HUD office for approval of our vouchers, but we don't foresee any issues with these being finalized.
So just so people understand, I mean, without that voucher, it's virtually impossible for PCRI to underwrite the cost to bring it down. I mean, Maxine knows this. She's forgotten more about this than I know. But that's why the Section 8 voucher is so important. That's why the VASH voucher is so important. And that's why the city or county subsidy on PSHs is so important, because otherwise it doesn't pencil out.
Yeah.
Right. For those of you who don't know exactly how the Section 8 program works, folks pay 30% of their income to live in the unit, whatever their income level is. And the voucher makes up the difference between a fair market rent and that ability of that household to pay an income. So it really does allow for projects to serve the lowest income levels.
So I'm going to move forward just a little bit here and talk about the commercial retail space that will front along Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. That'll be approximately 6,000 square feet divided into two spaces. Our residential lobby and community space are right at the center of the building, and on each corner, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Cook Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Ivy Street, the commercial retail spaces will be on those two corners. We've been developing what that looks like, sort of what the needs are, with ongoing feedback from community partners, and are continuing to have those conversations with the North-Northeast Business Alliance, the Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs, the Albina Opportunities Corporation, and a number of others, as well as with the larger community and the Neighborhood Association. And we've continued as we go through that process to identify partners and develop leasing strategies to make sure that the economic opportunity and the leases that are available in those spaces really continue to provide the economic benefit to the neighborhood and to businesses that may have been displaced or have roots displaced from or have roots in North and Northeast Portland. So this just gives you a snapshot sort of from the street level, the rendering. What you see most through the windows there is our community space with the residential lobby on the right, but you can see obviously the storefront windows that are in the community space continue through to the commercial retail as well, and I think really give an opportunity to activate and give a great street presence to those commercial retail spaces. You want to dive in on this one?
Sure. So we did want to give a little bit of a history of the environmental cleanup and that's been done on the site. So for those of you who aren't aware, the former Grant Warehouse site was actually a Superfund site, and that was largely due to the uses in the buildings that were on the site previously. So PDC purchased this property, oh gosh, over more than 10 years ago. It's probably more like 15 years ago, and conducted a cleanup of the existing buildings on the site, which included demolition of all the former buildings on the site. And DEQ actually issued a no further action letter to PDC after that cleanup. So when the development team took over the site, they had a no further action letter from DEQ in hand, but felt strongly that it was important to understand any additional environmental issues that needed to be addressed for residential use on the site. So we went through an extensive investigation with consultants and with DEQ to ensure that the site is indeed safe for residential occupancy and use. And as a result, we are implementing some additional control measures to protect residents from any possible environmental risks on the site, including installing a vapor barrier below the building that will prevent any intrusion of soil gas vapor into the living areas of the building. It's also important to note that we don't have any ground floor residential units at this site, and that's an additional protective measure. And then we are also removing an area of lead contaminated soil from the site as part of our construction work on site. And then we will be subject to some post-construction verification from DEQ in order to get a certificate of completion from the site. So we feel strongly that we've really put an extra effort into making sure that this site is fit for residential occupancy, and with the oversight from DEQ, we'll have good protections for residents and for PCRI as the long-term owner from environmental issues at this site.
And I'll just interject here. When PCRI was awarded the site, the opportunity to redevelop the site, I started getting calls to show you about the level of trust that existed between the city and the residents in Northeast Portland. And they were concerned about that very issue. So working with Gertland and Eatland, we decided that we were going to go above and beyond what may be necessary in every effort to assure residents that that wasn't a sick site, that the PCRI wasn't awarded the site because no one else wanted to develop it, or because it was going to be primarily housing for displaced residents, the majority of which were Black residents and other minorities. So that was a great thing that we had an opportunity to do, and the city supported that. So thank you.
And now I'm sure the moment you've all been waiting for, which is an explanation of our capital stack. This is about a $26 million project altogether, including the commercial space. And as is always the case with affordable housing projects, we are cobbling together multiple sources from multiple partners in order to make this project work and be able to offer the affordable rents that we're going to offer here. So just big picture, this is a 4% tax credit equity project with tax credits awarded from Oregon Housing and Community Service, their federal low-income housing tax credits. Those come along with tax-exempt bonds that are issued through Oregon Housing and Community Services as well to finance the construction and the permanent debt on the property. So you can see here that we have a little more than $10 million in equity, and those credits are being purchased by U.S. Bank. For this project, we are getting a little over $1 per credit from the bank. So we are very grateful that we've maintained such good pricing. There's been a little bit of shakiness in the tax credit pricing market as of late. And so U.S. Bank has been a good partner and worked very, very hard to help us maintain pricing to make this project work. So we're very grateful to them for sticking with us. There's the $7.35 million in interstate URA TIF. Additionally, as Director Krieger mentioned, the land is valued currently at about $4.1 million, so that's additional contributed value to the project. The project will support about a $5.48 million permanent debt. That's permanent amortizing debt that the project will be able to support loan payments on through income from operations. The project additionally has a couple of grants. So Meyer Memorial Trust has given PCRI $250,000 in support of this affordable housing. Oregon Housing and Community Service will give us a weatherization grant for all the energy-saving features that we're installing in the building that will save the project and the residents money. And then additionally, we have our SDC waivers from the city, a property tax exemption that we will gain through the state, and then those 20 project-based Section 8 vouchers from Home Forward. I'll also mention that PCRI has additional contribution into this project, both in the form of a deferred developer fee. They're deferring $800,000 of their fee. They will get that paid back over a 10-year time frame from income from operations, but it is at risk because that is below the line money that they have put in to support the project. So I think that's an important note. And then the other thing that we didn't include on this that we should have is that PCRI is also funding the cost of the construction of the commercial piece. So that is not part of what the city is financing here today. PCRI is separately contributing what will be approximately $1.5 million in support for the development of that commercial space.
And so then I can talk just a little bit about some of the community benefits in terms of what this project gives back to our local economy. One of the things that, was one of the first things that we identified is that we really wanted to provide the economic opportunity through the construction of the project and through the entire development process. Right now, with our construction numbers getting finalized and our construction contract just about to be finalized, we anticipate exceeding 30% participation from minority, women, and emerging small business in the construction of the project. I think that's heavily weighted to, and I apologize that I don't have the exact number, but that's heavily weighted to minority and women-owned businesses. We're pending clarification on a couple bids that would actually get us up over 40% inclusion on that project. And just for the record, that's really our goal. Beyond just the contracting on the project, we're looking for workforce opportunities. I think there are some hurdles in terms of some of the workforce requirements that make it a little bit difficult for us to specifically target the communities that we really want to provide the opportunity for on this project. And PCRI, Colas Construction have both been working very closely with the National Association of Minority Contractors of Oregon, as well as the Metropolitan Contractor Improvement Partnership, to figure out exactly how we can reach exactly those folks who might live in the housing and who are from the Northeast community, who we really want to get the economic opportunity of this development through. And so we're looking for ways that we can work with the system and in fact reach the folks that maybe wouldn't naturally be reached because of some bureaucratic hurdles. And I think we found some good ways to, I don't have goal numbers on that at the moment, but I think we found some good ways to do a much better job at that than is typically achieved in publicly financed projects. And then just as a note, PCRI has additional projects in our development pipeline. I'm sure you've seen a number of Colas' signs along the street, particularly if you drive down MLK Boulevard. And so there's really a fantastic opportunity for us to use that entire path of development to really provide ongoing opportunities for the subcontractors that are working on Colas' project, our projects, and other projects, so that they can retain sustained employment for the folks who are part of their workforce, and so those minority and women-owned subcontractors that we're using really have ongoing work, and it isn't just a one and done, and thanks for the opportunity. Our goal is really to provide that sustained opportunity, and I think we've got some great opportunities for it. We've also been very intentional to look to opportunities to engage minority and women-owned businesses in particular through the professional services, the development. Obviously a big part of that is Carlton Hart Architecture, which is a minority-owned firm. But we've really gone beyond that and looked at all the engineers, the interior design, the geotechnical and civil engineers, and all of the other folks who work to essentially get us to the permit and get the development out of the ground. And right now we're tracking at about 75% inclusion of MWSB folks in the professional service field, which we're very proud of.
It's outstanding.
And I'll say there are some really great stories in there as well. I know one particular firm that we had specifically reached out to whose proposal really didn't fit with our needs and finances for this project. And this outreach has been really consistent with all the folks. We took the opportunity to circle back around with them and really talk through with them about, hey, here's where you're at, here's why this doesn't work, you're not right for this project, but let's work with you to figure out some other opportunities. And I know that Carlton Hart has since begun work with them on another project. So even where we haven't engaged those firms here for this development, we've provided opportunity for them in the future. And then finally, just to wrap that up, right now we're well on track to meet LEED Gold certification for the development. Going back to a bit of what Maxine said, really our commitment to the community to create an efficient and healthy development. And we're targeting some strategies. I think there's a very good pathway for us to get to LEED Platinum as well. But just to note that really our goal is to invest the money in the things that benefit the residents and the community, and not necessarily to get a label on the building. But I think the label on the building is what is one way of signifying that we've really put the effort into making that happen. So.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. I just need a time check. Could you tell me where you are in your presentation?
We are nearly done. We've
Very good.
One last slide.
Excellent, thank
Yep.
you.
So this is just the final slide to let you know what our timeline looks like. So we are at a really critical point in putting all the financing together and getting this project in the ground. We can't wait to be under construction. So after today, assuming that we obtain approval from the commission for the financing from the city, our next big hurdle or big milestone is getting through the Housing Stability Council at Oregon Housing and Community Services. We are currently tracking going to them in early May, which means that we will be able to start construction shortly thereafter. So we're targeting a early May start of construction. It's about a 14-month project to complete. So we'll be completing and leasing up starting in July 2018, and anticipate 4 to 5 months to get the project leased up and fully occupied. So by the end of 2018, we should have a fully occupied building.
Thank you.
And that's it.
That's it.
Commissioner Daly?
Thanks for the presentation. You answered almost all of my questions. I have 2 left. One is, and you may not know this offhand, how many families have been identified or households have been identified so far that qualify for our preference policy, roughly?
We haven't really looked at it from that perspective
Okay.
yet, but we do know that during that period of that gentrification and involuntary displacement, you had a range of somewhere starting in 2000. You had a range of somewhere around 16,000 people being displaced. So, and we
Shouldn't be
begin
hard
the
to fill
process.
this
No,
building.
it won't be. It, really, this is just the beginning of what we intend to do. But yeah.
And my second question is, do you have any fun plans for the roof? Garden, solar panels,
We are
penthouse
hoping-
suite.
We are very much hoping to have a solar array on the roof.
Okay.
That is part of our sustainability strategy, not currently in the budget, but hopefully something through construction savings that we'll be able to afford.
Cool, thank
Yeah.
you.
And I can just add one additional note. So we're continuing conversation with the Housing Bureau about the preference policy application. That actually hasn't been opened yet, or even completely refined and nailed down in terms of how it will apply to the rental projects. But certainly we have a long list of potential residents on our waiting list who will certainly qualify, and we'll work with them to make sure that that any of them can get into leasing in the building, and I think there's a lot of details still to be worked through on there, but no shortage,
No
exactly.
problem.
Any further questions? Thank you. Excellent and thorough presentation. Is there any public testimony on this item?
I have 2 people signed up.
Very good.
Shedrick Wilkins and Charles Bridgecrane Johnson.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for my colleagues, while we're getting everybody ready to go, we're obviously way over schedule. We have a council session scheduled for this afternoon at 2 o'clock, and maybe during testimony, if you could just think about whether or not it would be appropriate to move some of the remainder of the agenda to this afternoon after the time certain item at 2 p.m. I'd certainly be willing to entertain it. So think on that for a few minutes, and then we can.
After the bench?
Well, we have a 2 p.m. session this afternoon starts with a time certain item.
Right.
And I'm just trying to,
I would be
it will, so
I think we're gonna have to plow ahead.
plow ahead. Very good. And so why don't we do that, after this one, we'll take a break, just so we don't all fall to pieces, and then we'll keep plowing through. Sorry, gentlemen.
I'm Shedrick Wilkins, and I approve of this kind of building. This building looks very similar to the new Blanchet house, and the old one's sitting there, it's all falling apart. It looks like that. I think, too, that Homer Williams is right, that we need to handle or low-income people, 100 people at a time, which in those 80 families in this building. And someday I'd like to look back at Portland and see us move into areas like North Portland. My father worked for Nabisco Cookies, but he wanted to live in the suburbs and get away from other people. That's not a good idea. And he died in his house, and he died all alone. It's just, you need to be with other people, find out what other people do. And that's one reason why I went to a university, to find out what other people do. My dad just wanted to kind of hide away from people and not worry about their problems. And that's where problems start. And I like to think, too, that 4 years from now, I'd rather see Portland have this kind of housing all over Portland and this area rather than have one big, giant new interstate bridge.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Yes, my name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Super Watchdog. Again, to PCRI, I think this is a very good project, very well thought out. I like the fact you're focusing also on some of the larger family size 2 and 3 bedroom units. A lot of times we're seeing that people are just trying to do micro size units, but it's very beneficial to understand that people want to live in units if they can on a long-term basis, and the larger the square footage, it's much more beneficial. Issue that I have too is that a good point that Commissioner Udaley brought up is what might happen on the roof. I do want to see maybe some type of solar panels, again, wind type use. Again, Girding and Edlund on their net zero practices. Great developers here. This is going to be a great project, environmentally friendly. And again, in the future, and it's not anything to PCRI, it's more to the city employees, I'd like to see more of a breakdown on the square footage units on these type of ordinances. And also, again, I commend the developers for doing a deferred payment plan on this to help this project move forward. And overall, like I say, these are the type of projects we want to see happen, very well thought out, and the right people are in this project, so I give it a thumbs up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Charles Bridge Crane Johnson. And in light of the previous testimony, I think we can say that 5 out of 5 middle-aged white men heartily endorse this project. So, and we also strongly encourage you to read Nancy McCarthy. I don't know if any of you remember Nancy McCarthy, but if this project has a problem, the problem is that Nancy McCarthy wrote about this site on the 24th of May in 2006. And if we look on the Bureau of Environmental website, brownfields list, we see that the seed for this started back in 1998 and 99 when the EPA had to go into this property where almost certainly a bunch of affluent white men had hidden toxic chemicals and created the brownfield site. So the city should also look and see if it's legal and permissible to assist PCRI with the additional certification. They're going to have to wait till May before they can get the final bureaucratic checks and balance clearance on this from an outside of the city agency. So I think when we look at that scope, the fact that the scanner was writing about this in 2006, and that we're trying to just now take a brownfield that was identified by the EPA in 1999, by all means, let's vote yes and have a break.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion on the part of the council? Please call the roll.
Fritz. Thank you very much for the thorough presentation. I'm very excited about the preference policy working out. Thank you for explaining who Beatrice Morrow was. I very much appreciate that, thinking about the history even in the naming of the building, and I look forward to its completion. Aye.
Fish.
I want to thank everyone who put this together. This is sort of a dream team when you think about it, Maxine. You put Colas, Carlton, Hart, Girding, Elin, and a bunch of other partners together. And on a project of this complexity, you need a dream team. You need a strong team. So congratulations on that. I very much appreciate the focus on serving low-income families and the way you've done it. And I appreciate the vision that says poor people get to live in a beautiful building. And by the way, that vision is under attack right now, and from many quarters. And I think we have to we have to defend it at every juncture. Since Maxine mentioned the history of the naming of the building and the history of the neighborhood and the site, there's one piece of history I want to add, which is in 2010, when we took all the resources out of the Portland Development Commission and put them in the Housing Bureau, we were heavily criticized for taking the properties. And one of the reasons we were heavily criticized is that a number of those properties were slated for development that was not consistent with the Housing Bureau values. So there was a piece in Inner Northeast that was slated for luxury condos and a hotel. I can go around the horn, but there were some very unhappy developers. When we got the properties along with the TIF, everything had to go through the lens of the Housing Bureau. And it may be that PDC would have developed this property just like you're proposing, but I'm not sure that would have happened. And so I want to thank Sam Adams for being such a strong supporter of doing something which we were heavily criticized for at the time, which is bringing all the assets together under one roof and creating the Housing Bureau, which in turn, I think, gave us an opportunity on many of these sites to have these very robust community conversations, some of which were very painful conversations, but resulted in change. So congratulations to everybody. I'm pleased to support this. Aye.
Saltzman?
Well, the Beatrice Morrow is going to be the first of many affordable housing projects coming to North and Northeast Portland, thanks to the city's North-Northeast housing strategy. I want to thank Dr. Stephen Holt for chairing the North-Northeast Oversight Committee to hold our feet to the fire, PDC, Housing Bureau, other city agencies, to bring all these affordable units to fruition. The importance of this project has been well demonstrated today by the presentation, but I think the fact that it is the first rental project to use the preference policy is really something to take note of, and I look forward, I'm sure it will be heavily subscribed to by people who were formerly residents of North and Northeast Portland. And I have great hopes for this, and I do want to just thank PCRI for their dedication to the community they serve and for doing the right type of development. Maxine Fitzpatrick and Travis, we thank you, and I also want to acknowledge the great development team that's been put together to make this project a reality, particularly Girding Edlin and its principal, Sarah Zahn. So thank you very much. Aye.
You, Daly?
Thanks for the great presentation. I'm proud of my city in this moment for addressing historic wrongs done to the African American community, and we need, a few dozen more projects like this to truly undo a lot of the damage done. So very pleased to vote aye.
Wheeler?
I'll second everything my colleagues said on this, and maybe I'll even underscore Commissioner Hugh Daly's feeling of pride. This really is an amazing project, and I want to applaud everybody who had a role in particular on the preference policy, and I know, Commissioner, that you had a great deal to do with that. It's a bold policy, and I don't want to fail to underscore what it actually means. Portland, as everybody in this room certainly understands, has a very mixed history when it comes to race. And there was intentional gentrification and displacement of African Americans in our community. And this project, by enacting a preference policy, puts Portland in the unique position of being the first in the country to not only acknowledge that displacement as a result of gentrification, but it puts us in a unique position of seeking to reverse it. And so I think it's just a tremendous, tremendous start for the community. And I know all of you on the advisory committee, Dr. Holt, everybody on the development team, Maxine and others, the construction team under with Andrew Colas, the community advocates, some of whom are here, who pushed really tirelessly for this project. What a great thing you have accomplished. And now it's up to all of us to work together and see it through. So for me, this is an easy aye. The ordinance is adopted. colleagues, how long would people, sure, applaud that one, why not? How long would you all like to?
5 minutes.
5 minutes good? 10 minutes?
I'm getting an excused absence.
Five?
I have something at 10 to.
Okay. All right, so
Could we like break to 12:30 and then come back 12:30 and go straight through?
are people okay with, is 12:30 okay?
30 minutes.
Yes? Okay, why don't we do that? Let's recess until 12:30. Thank you. please.
Item 278.
Wait, where are we? 278, correct, thank you.
Sure. 278, accept the Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan Update, Performing Arts Venue Supplement.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your patience today. Good, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. My name's Danielle Brooks. I'm the city's civil. Oh, green light? Yeah, on the bottom there.
Thank you.
Much better, thank you.
Technology.
Thanks, Carla.
Thank you. So I'm the city's Civil Rights Title VI and ADA Title II manager. I'm with the Office of Equity and Human Rights. And I want to thank you for your time today. So I'm really fortunate that my work gets to center on both racial and disability, non-discrimination, and equity. That being said, we know we have a significant amount of work to do in this effort. And what we're going to present to you today is work that will assist us as we move forward doing this. We're pleased to request the acceptance of the Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan Update, the Performing Arts Venues Supplement. To frame this report, this is a Title II transition plan. Now, Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act mandates that no person on the grounds of disability shall be excluded from participation in, denied the benefits of, or subjected to discrimination at any program, service, or activity provided to the public by a government entity, in this case, the City of Portland. As the city, we strive to remove barriers and promote and provide accessibility. Access can be both programmatic, so policy, procedural modification, effective communication, as well as the more commonly known physical access. We're responsible for addressing both. The ADA Title II Transition Plan, as required by federal regulations, identifies and assesses physical and architectural barriers in publicly accessed city facilities and spaces, provides remedies for access in accordance with federal, state, and local codes, and prioritizes and schedules barrier removal. The original transition plan was completed between the years of 1993 and 1996. That plan became vastly out of date, and we desperately needed a update. With work beginning in 2010 through the championship of Commissioner Fritz and then Mayor Adams, the city undertook an effort to update and really redevelop the city's ADA Title II transition plan. It's important to understand that this is a Title II, it says it's Title II spaces, meaning that it only looks at buildings that are owned by the city that can, and in spaces that are accessed by the public. Similarly, it also looks at spaces that might be leased by the city that provides public programming and services. So, for example, if it is a employee-only space, we would not consider that as part of the scope of this work, and it was not included in the transition plan. So again, publicly accessible spaces.
But what about employees who have disabilities?
So that is covered under Title I, and it has a different set of requirements. We have a higher obligation to our Title II mandate, and that requires a different set of application of the actual standards and guidelines. So we would still need to make accommodations and make sure that we are accessible, however, for our employees with disabilities. The idea, of course, would be we'd want to make sure that all barriers are removed in every space. And generally, things do get shifted around, so we wanted to take that into consideration as we were developing our plans. So we tried to do as broad of an assessment as possible. There are just some spaces that we just didn't feel could be included in the actual assessment. So most of our transition plans for most of the city-owned spaces were accepted by council back in November in 2014. Given the sheer size and uniqueness of the features, Parks brought its supplement to the overall transition plan in 2015. Including Parks, our consultants, MIG, and our partners surveyed approximately 342 facilities and identified about over 25,000 individual barriers, and developed a prioritized schedule for barrier removal over the next 20 years. Our plans are actually really unique, and they've been developed in a similar format. We wanted to make sure that the public was engaged and included at every step of development with the plan. So from the actual project design through the entire process, community and subject matter experts have been included, not just as a participant or not just as providing input here and there, but actually designing the process. And we tried to make sure that when we scheduled all of the barrier removal, we took into consideration a balance between planned projects and maintenance schedules, as well as addressing the accessibility and type of barrier that would provide the highest level of impact for the community, both within individual facilities and across. So while we have additional supplements and plans that will be coming up, so for example, the right-of-way, public right-of-way transition plan from our Bureau of Transportation, as well as the self-evaluation that looks at programmatic access, we're here today to talk about the acceptance of the second addition to the transition plan, which is our performing arts venues. Like parks, this supplement does follow the same process and format as the overall transition plan, and all have really been designed to be living documents that will systematize this work, maintain this work, and that will ensure and encourage progress and tracking in order to provide accessibility in our public facilities. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Carl Lyle, to discuss the actual specifics of this particular supplement.
Great, thanks. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Carl Lyle. I'm with the Spectator Venues Program in the Office of Management and Finance. And I'll just give you a very brief overview of kind of what's in this supplement. So the city owns 3 performing arts venues. Surprising how many people don't realize that, but they are the Keller Auditorium, Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall, and Antoinette Hatfield Hall. And there's actually 3 theaters within Antoinette Hatfield Hall: the Newmark, the Winningstad, and the Brunish theaters. They were not included, obviously, in the original work to survey the city's properties, but they are being added now. So the facilities are operated not by the city, but by Portland 5 Centers for the Arts under the oversight of Metropolitan Exposition and Recreation Commission, or MERC, which is part of Metro. And we have a great working relationship with them, and they do a fantastic job maintaining and operating the facilities for the city. Joe Durr, Director of Event Services, is here observing, and we've worked with him every step of the way on this process. Since bringing the Portland 5 venues under the oversight of the city's Spectator Venues program in 2015, we've been able to work with OEHR and Danielle to begin doing survey work, and we were able to bring the same consultant team back that did the other properties to ensure that kind of consistency with the city's overall transition plan. We assembled this draft plan and put it out for public comment last fall. It was out for comment in December and January, and we held an open house open to the public in the Brunish Theater in late January. So there are about 1,500 additional potential barriers that are included in this supplement that are going to be added to the transition plan. They are organized into an initial 20-year work program, very much in the same way that we address the other city facilities included in the transition plan. Generally, the easier kind of maintenance type barriers are grouped towards the first few years because they're things that we can do immediately without additional great cost. These are things like adjusting the pressure of door pulls, for example, and there are many barriers like that are as simple as sending a maintenance crew out with a measuring pressure gauge and adjusting some door closers. So that's kind of where it starts. Other items, and the beauty of the transition plan is that it gives us a map of where the identified barriers are in the building, so that when planned capital work or improvements is going on in different parts of the building, for example, a scheduled elevator upgrade or something like that, these barriers can be addressed in those areas through those plans without, again, additional great cost. They kind of become incorporated into other necessary projects. So that's a important thing that the transition plan allows us to do. Some barriers may be addressed through programmatic changes, signage from one part of the building that's less accessible to one that is more, and also through different strategies through ticketing and other kind of policies that Portland 5 has control over. Some are admittedly going to be more challenging. These are older buildings built at a time when there were different codes and regulations, and some are historic, like the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall. And so we're going to be working with Portland 5 over the next 3 to 4 years on kind of refinement work with teams of architects and engineers to help us understand what really can be done about some of those somewhat more challenging barriers, because we don't really know at this point. With that, I would just say, accepting this ADA Title II transition plan will add all those barriers to the city's overall adopted transition plan. And then as we move forward and working with OEHR and the individual bureaus who are responsible for managing the different assets, we'll be including the Portland 5 facilities in regular kind of progress updates that will hopefully be coming back to council. So with that, I'd just say if there are any questions, please accept the report.
Any questions? Excellent work. Any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
Can I accept a motion?
Mayor, we cannot have a hearing without a question.
Oh, absolutely.
Since they-
It does seem wrong,
Since
doesn't it?
they waited all morning. The accompanying report, the fiscal impact report, says there's no immediate budget impact, and you, in your testimony, made it clear that you are sequencing this so we do the maintenance-related things first and the structural things later. So, I very much appreciate the logic of that, but in accepting the report, I'm not going to ratify that, and I'll tell you why. As the council liaison to Portland 5, I actually think that we're going to have to do a deeper dive now that you have the report and ask some bigger questions. And one of the reasons you propose that sequencing has to do with cost. And from where I sit, cost is a factor, but is not the key factor in ensuring compliance with the ADA. And if there are things that we conclude need to be done and there's a question about how we pay for it, I'd rather front load that conversation rather than just assume that we're on a path to get the low-hanging fruit. So what I'm going to ask is that within the next month, you bring the stakeholders together, and I'll host the meeting. And what I wanted, our partner, and then OMF and Office of Equity and Human Relations, and I want to be part of the conversation of looking at the sequencing and the cost and how you've projected the cost over the next decade. And from that, I'll come back to my colleagues and make some recommendations about the timeline and our investment. And that has nothing to do with accepting the report and the excellent work you're doing. And I'm very grateful that Commissioner Fritz really did push this, because we've been out of compliance for a long time. But identifying all the deficiencies is different than making a judgment about prioritization. And so I reserve the right to maybe have a respectful disagreement with you on that, but I'd like to have the key parties in a room and set aside some time to have that conversation.
Sure.
So thank you.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Further questions or comments for the panel? Please call the roll.
Fritz?
Well, thank you both, especially Danielle, for all of your work on equity in many different forms. You're one of the main movers and shakers for the Portland Plan and for the transition plan as well, and I very much appreciate that. 17,000 of the barriers are in Portland Parks and Recreation, and we are addressing those as we do things like implementing the Fix Our Parks maintenance bond, including accessibility improvements in that. And basically in every project that we do extra to take care of some of the allocations. I will say, colleagues, that when I was in charge of the Bureau of Development Services, I asked for an every 3 months check accounting of what had been taken care of, because there were relatively few issues within that Bureau because of the building that they're in is less than 20 years old. So when I was handing it over to Commissioner Saltzman for the last 18 months of my second term, I was able to report to him that everything had been taken care of. It's obviously a lot more challenging in a bureau like Parks that has thousands upon thousands of them. And I'll remind my colleagues that I did and have consistently requested, along with the Parks Budget Advisory Committee, we have requested allocations to start addressing some of these issues.
Thanks for the report. I'm going to be watching those back seats.
Range. The city put forward an aspirational goal.
9%, although it begs the question, what happened to the other 1.1%? But thanks for your good work. Aye.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
Wheeler?
I hope that as they do this project, they bring more than just the bucket. But I applaud their MWESB goals. That's excellent to hear. Aye, the report's accepted. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item 280, authorize revenue bonds for affordable housing projects.
This is a second reading. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Next item, please.
Item 281, authorize city fleet to purchase replacement asphalt grinder for use by Bureau of Transportation at $695,825.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? This is the second reading. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, please.
Item 282, approve and terminate limited tax exemptions for properties under the Home Buyer Opportunity Limited Tax Exemption Program.
So I've been provided a bunch of talking points, but I'm going to shorten them. As everybody here knows, the Portland Housing Bureau administers the city's affordable housing property tax exemption program. The Home Buyer Opportunity Limited Tax Exemption, HOLT program, provides a 10-year limited tax exemption to low to moderate income home buyers, making home ownership more affordable for families in Portland. Home builders have to apply for the tax exemption before pulling permits for construction. The Bureau approves builder applications by filing a resolution with the council several times a year. This resolution includes 5 properties that are being approved for the program. Homes with exemptions have to sell below the annual sales price cap, that's currently $350,000, to buyers who are income qualified. And in this case, that means below 100% AMI. And property owners have to continue to live in the home during the 10-year exemption period. When developers sell homes over the price limit or to a buyer who's over the income limit, the exemption is removed. The staff conducts quarterly compliance monitoring to ensure that homes are lived in by the owners during the 10-year of the exemption. And if it turns out that a home is not owner-occupied, based on that monitoring, the exemption is removed. 10 properties are having the exemption removed because they either sold over the price cap, that's 5 properties, the property owner was over the income, that is 3 properties, or the property owner was no longer living in the home, and that was 2 properties. Before an exemption is removed, owners have the opportunity to appeal the decision made by the city. Good afternoon. That doesn't leave much, does it?
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler. No, that's pretty much the essence of the item in front of you.
Teamwork.
Have we had any protests to any of the action items before us?
We have not.
Is there any further questions on this matter? Any public testimony on this item?
Someone had signed up earlier, Zora Graham. I believe she's not here anymore.
She is not here. Any further discussion? If not, this moves to second reading. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. It's a resolution. Please call the roll. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz.
Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. And I recall that last week Ms. Sipe gave us some testimony about renters who should no longer qualify for low-income housing. So since we've got this method of looking at whether home buyers should continue to have the exemption, I hope that we'll get some more information about how affordable housing can, in rental markets, could continue to be maintained affordable. But as usual, great work from the Housing Bureau to make sure that the program does what it's supposed to do. Aye.
Fish.
One piece of history for our newest members. This function used to be performed by the Portland Development Commission. Through an audit and other commentary, the city was criticized for not being transparent enough in tracking the exemptions and reporting people that no longer qualified. And since the Housing Bureau took over this function and has staff working on ensuring that the people who qualify for tax exemptions across the board remain eligible, and when they don't, they come to council to have people removed. This is exactly the kind of oversight that the public expects for these programs, and I want to thank Javier and his team for their good work. Aye.
Saltzman. Aye. Udaly.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The resolution is adopted. Thanks, Javier. Next item, please.
Item 283, declare the Frank L. Knight property surplus property and authorize the Bureau of Parks and Recreation to take all actions necessary to dispose of the property by sale on the open market.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of two property dispositions that Portland Parks and Recreation is bringing forward today. This property does not provide strategic value to the Parks Bureau due to its location and layout, and the Bureau and I would like to use resources from the sale of this property to fulfill other crucial parks needs. And we have park staff here to present.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Frank Dennis James. My manager here is Todd Lofgren. I'm here to authorize that Council declare the the Frank L. Knight property surplus property and authorize the Bureau of Parks and Recreation to take all actions necessary to dispose of the property by sale on the open market. Parks has determined that the Frank L. Knight property, which consists of 0.53 acres and 3 separate parcels of unimproved land on Southwest Montgomery Drive, is excess property. 2 of the Knight parcels were donated to the City of Portland by Frank L. Knight on April 28, 1941. The 3rd parcel was transferred to the Bureau from the city's assessment collection fund by way of Ordinance 101193 in 1954. All lots are zoned open space. The site sits on an extremely steep slope behind a guardrail, and it has never been used by Parks. It is not currently deemed active. No future use of the property has been identified, and the property has little or no value to Parks. However, a deed restriction on the Knight donated parcels states that the property is to be used for park purposes only. The deed reserves the right for Knight or his heirs to revoke or cancel the deed and recover the property if that provision is ever violated. So in order to dispose of the property on the open market, Parks, with the assistance of the City Attorney's Office, would like to take all actions necessary to remove that restriction. This will most likely require a court action to request that the restriction be removed, and that step will be part of the plan going forward. Pursuant to the city's property disposition policy in the summer of 2016, Parks notified all city bureaus regarding the availability of this specific property. No bureau or agency expressed interest in the property. So in December of 2016, pursuant to that policy, Parks posted a notice on the site soliciting public comment, and the only comments received have come from potential buyers who appear to be from that neighborhood. The one citizen stated opposition to the city disposing of this property through this process. Parks is now before Council to request that Council declare the property surplus and authorize Parks to sell the property on the open market. However, prior to any such sale, as has been mentioned, that deed restriction issue should be resolved. Consequently, Parks requests that Council authorize Parks to take all actions necessary to eliminate the deed's restriction. I'm now prepared to respond to any questions that you may have at this time.
Are there any questions on this matter?
I guess I have one, which I should have asked before to my staff. It just occurs to me that it's zoned open space, and with the diagram of the property, it's adjacent to residentially zoned properties. Is there any consideration to trying to change the zone before we put it on the market?
So we didn't have any current plans to do a rezoning change ourselves. That would be the obligation of the buyer.
And that they would be free to ask for that in a quasi-judicial process, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
I just have a comment. Todd, you've been away for a couple years.
Yes.
And it's nice to have you back. Welcome back to the Parks family.
Thank you. Thanks.
Are there any heritage trees on this site?
Not that we're aware of, no heritage trees, no.
Thank you. Any further questions for this panel before we ask for testimony? Any public testimony on this item, Carla?
No one signed up.
With that, please call the roll.
Fritz.
Thank you for your work on this, and I agree. Welcome back, Todd. Aye.
Fish.
That was a very succinct and very clear presentation on a complicated issue, so thank you, sir. Aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 284, declare the Southwest Broadway Drive property surplus property and authorize the Bureau of Parks and Recreation to dispose of the property by sale on the open market.
Hello again.
Okay.
And
hello
again,
Good
Mr.
afternoon
Dennis,
again.
Mr. James, take it away. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I'm here to request that this council declare the Southwest Broadway property surplus and authorize the Bureau of Parks and Recreation to dispose of the property by sale on the open market. Parks has determined that this 7,400 square foot unimproved parcel located on Southwest Broadway Drive is excess real property. The property does not have a street address, but it is adjacent to 872 Southwest Broadway Drive. This lot was quitclaimed to Parks from Multnomah County in 1984. Thick volunteer vegetative growth chokes the site, and it sits on a 20% grade. The site slopes sharply downward to its southern property line, which ends at a sheer cliff almost 100 feet in elevation. At 3 different times, in 2013, 2014, and 2016, Parks notified all city bureaus regarding the availability of this property, and no bureau or agency has ever expressed interest in the property. In 2013 and in 2014, letters concerning the Bureau's plans to dispose of the property were forwarded to neighborhood group leaders in the Southwest Hills Residential League. Park staff, yours truly included, then met with that organization at their January 2015 meeting, where we explained the Bureau's process, responded to questions, and solicited feedback. Subsequent to that meeting, the group offered full support for the Bureau's plan to dispose of the property. We continued with our own disposal process at that time, which included public notice of the property's availability posted on site and on our website. However, when the city's new disposition policy was instituted last year, we rebooted and began that process again. So in December of 2016, a second posting soliciting public comment was placed on the site consistent with that new policy. The only public comments received so far have come from potential buyers who are apparently from the neighborhood. So we're now before council requesting that council declare this Southwest Broadway Drive property surplus and authorize the Bureau of Parks and Recreation to dispose of the property by sale on the open market. I'm now prepared to respond to any questions you might have.
Seeing none, any public comments on this item?
No one signed up.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Fritz.
Well, thank you for another succinct presentation about the history, and thanks to Commissioner Fish for really reviving and revising the surplus property process, and then we were happy to comply with it. Thanks to Frank Dennis James, Elaine Nunn Peterson, Todd Lofgren, and Pooja Bhatt on my staff. Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Saltzman. Aye. Udaly.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item, please.
Item 285, authorize a contract with the lowest responsible bidder for construction of the Richmond South Tabor Sewer Rehabilitation Project, number E10383, for $4,260,000.
Commissioner Fish.
Mayor and colleagues, this ordinance will authorize a contract to replace or rehabilitate about 2 miles of severely deteriorated sewer pipe in southeast Portland to protect public health and our environment. Project area is between Southeast Division and Southeast Powell, from Southeast 36 to 71st Avenue. The time frame for this project it would start in September and last a little over a year. Scott Gibson and Colleen Harold are here to walk us through the project. Welcome.
Good afternoon. We'll just turn this over to the project manager. Colleen has a short presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Colleen Harold. I work for the Bureau of Environmental Services. I'm a project manager. As mentioned, we're here today to ask for the authorization to approve an ordinance to advertise our $4.26 million Richmond South Tabor sewer project. This project is part of the BES Large-Scale Sewer Rehabilitation Program. To date, Richmond South Tabor is the 28th project in 39 projects planned in this large-scale sewer rehab program. As shown on this map of the large-scale program, Richmond South Tabor is shown in green among the other projects in that program in yellow. As mentioned, it is bounded on the north by Division, the south by Francis Street, the west by 36th, and the east by 71st Avenue. It has 50 segments of pipe totaling approximately 2 miles. Its diameter is 8-inch to 30-inch diameter. Its vintage was constructed in 1915 to 1981. It is 81% of its sewers in residential streets and 12% in major arterials. I know these pictures get old for you. But
Probably for you too, Colin.
yes, they do. But these are project-specific photos, and they really allow me to be a forensic sewer scientist, and they help me to determine whether that pipe is really in the project scope or not. The two top are examples of that typical mainline pipe defects, showing broken pipe and deterioration, and the bottom two are of laterals that are highly deteriorated and help me determine that the pipe is in the scope. BES public involvement staff have done extensive outreach in this area. We've communicated to both information about the project and anticipated night work, including work around schools. Work performed over weekends will avoid impact to local businesses, and arrangements for on-site private work has allowed us to use less impactful construction methods. This map is included in our PI flyer that went out to the Richmond South Tabor neighborhoods. We communicated with residents, neighborhood and business associations, schools, TriMet, and ODOT. And there will be work near 3 schools: Franklin, St. Ignatius, and Perry Center schools. This really represents 3 types of construction methods that we use in our work consistently. Open cut, using PVC typically, sometimes clay, sometimes concrete. It also includes 600 feet of pipe bursting and a lot of cured in place pipe. Finally, in summary, our engineer's estimate is $4.26 million. I have a high level of confidence now. And we advertised in late April. We begin construction in September. It's a little bit longer than a year so that we capture 2 seasons of summer. Thank you.
So I have a question, if I could, to Ms. Harold. When I got the briefing on this, can we bring up the map that shows the impacted area?
That one, yeah.
Yeah, that's the impact of this construction is going to be significant, and we have some very substantial east-west corridors. We have some dense residential areas. We've got schools and we've got businesses. And one of the questions I asked is, well, I understand we've done the community outreach. Are we going the extra mile to make sure that we're staging the work and planning the work to minimize the disruption on families getting their kids to school, local small businesses, and people that are commuting?
My answer is yes. We work closely with PI with our flyers. We've been working with Clay Vecker for our Vision Zero. We have some major arterials, Division, 52nd, where we have some vulnerable roadway users, bicyclists, pedestrians, and the impact on those, because we know these are high crash corridors. We're really making sure that we're bringing them, we might be moving those lanes or closing sidewalks, but we have a place for the people to walk and for the bicycles to be. Sometimes the bicycles will travel with cars. Sometimes we'll bring them back into that travel lane, the bike travel lane. So we feel like we've really accomplished our goal. We'll let you know how the construction goes.
And it goes without saying that we have a strong partnership. It's stronger now than it used to be, in fact, with the Portland Bureau of Transportation. And so we've coordinated our plans with their plans as well.
Yes, yes, we have. We have, in this one, we have the Foster Powell neighborhood just to the south, where Foster Road will have some improvements done to it. I've been working closely with them. We have other BES projects, Water Bureau projects, PBOT projects that they're our stakeholders. They come to my meetings, they participate in the work, so I feel confident.
And I guess, again, I'm stating the obvious, but we want to make sure that there's the highest level of collaboration among all the infrastructure bureaus, because if we can tear up a street once, and accomplish 3 goals and not do our job and then come back and have it dug up again later. We're doing a real service to the community, and I know you go the extra mile on that, but I'm just making sure we're touching all bases. Thank you.
There's one thing that I would add. The work in Cesar Chavez and Summon Division is planned to be done at night. Night work is a trade-off, inherently a trade-off. You have residents who are trying to sleep at night when you're doing construction, compared with the need to get the heavy traffic volumes through during the day. And then also our staff has, it's more dangerous for staff to be out in traffic at night. So we do everything we can to manage that and make sure we get that balance correct. So you'll see only where we need to do we have night work, and where we try to make that balance so that it's the right. It's a difficult call sometimes, but that's what we're trying to do.
Any further questions for this panel? Any public discussion on this?
Yes, we have one person, Mary Sipe.
Good afternoon. 2 words, night work. As Commissioner Fritz knows, I've been very much involved over the last 3 years in issues around noise and in working with the Noise Control Office. In fact, I'm on the Pearl District Neighborhood Association's Livability and Safety Committee, and I am now chair of the Noise Subcommittee. And as a result, I've learned Title 18, our noise ordinance, inside out, upside down, and backwards, and I attend almost every noise review board meeting. And the issues around night work is something that I would like to give more consideration to. There seems to be, well, if you just looked at the map with all of the yellow areas where this sewer work is going to be done over the course of the next years, the number of residents that are being impacted by work going on from 6 p.m. till 7 a.m. is significant. And what I would like to ask the Bureau to look at is to consider perhaps, when they're penciling out the cost and the time frame, to think in terms of mitigating the amount of work that they have to do at night to maybe 4 hours instead of the entire night. If I can get 8 hours of sleep or 4 hours of sleep versus 0 hours of sleep, there's a lot that I think needs to be taken into consideration in balancing, closing streets, safety of the workers, and getting the project done in a timely manner. But what I'm seeing is there's only 3 variances for night work on this particular project, but there are more and more and more. If you go on the Noise Control Office website and start looking at variances, which thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for getting that online. It's a godsend now that we can see the variances. But the amount of work that's being done throughout our community all night long in close proximity to residences is really surprisingly high. Anyhow,
Can I just say I totally endorse your testimony. I think you've raised an interesting question that we'll take a look at in terms of the time frame. And I also agree with you. We often get asked by business districts to do night work because when they look at the overall time frame of the project, if we can get it done quicker, it's less disruptive. There's obviously a different impact on residential areas, and people are balancing how long does the work take versus quiet enjoyment of their homes. And we have other things to balance, but you're spot on in your comments, and we might even reach out to you to get some additional feedback. So thank you.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Reach out. Thank you.
Is there any further public testimony on this item?
That's all who signed up.
Board discussion. That moves on to second reading. Thank you for the presentation. Next item, please.
Item 286, authorize a contract with the lowest responsive bidder for construction of the Slough Outfall 104B project number E10625 for $2,255,000.
Mayor and colleagues, you may recall Scott Gibson is with us again, and he's joined by Fred McGregor. This ordinance would authorize a contract to improve water quality flowing to the Columbia Slough by building 53 Green Street planter curb extensions. The project is part of a larger effort to meet agreements with the Department of Environmental Quality to reduce sediment in the slough. Instead of dredging sediment from the slough, environmental services agreements with DEQ call for reducing future sediment flows into the slough. The time frame for construction is 1 year, beginning in July, and I'll turn it over to Scott.
Thank you very much. Brad, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fred McGregor with BES, senior engineer of the project manager and also project engineer for this project. So this project is located in outer northeast. It's the Argay neighborhood. So the kind of the peach orange hatched area is in the Argay neighborhood area, north of 84 and east of 205. The project area that we're working in is I guess it's technically called the Argay Terrace neighborhood. So bounded on the north by Sandy, 125th Place on the west, roughly 137th on the east, and Northeast Shaver bounded on the south. So as Commissioner Fish alluded to, this is part of a record of decision that BES has reached with Oregon DEQ. Oregon DEQ, the record of decision that was agreed upon with Oregon DEQ kind of set out three different items in order to reduce pollution in the slough. One is to identify sources, treat those sources, and then ongoing monitoring to make sure that the work is effective. This is one of 71 outfalls. This is one of a handful that have identified as priority by DEQ. We're to come in first, do our project. We're going to treat our stormwater before DEQ moves in and does remediation in the slough. So our goals are to treat runoff from the right-of-way. We have our standard urban runoff issues, with oils, greases, and heavy metals. But our real target here is looking at legacy contaminations of DDTs that's present in the soil, because this area has largely historically been agriculture. In the end, what we'd like to do is be able to reach a no further action with Oregon DEQ, which means that we're effectively treating the urban runoff before it reaches the slough. Our project description, so we're going to be building 53 Green Street facilities, similar to what you see at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, within the Argay Terrace neighborhood. As part of that, we will be building some new ADA ramps. So these are completely in compliance with federal laws. Also, the memorandum of understanding that BES and PBOT staff have drafted up. So these will meet those obligations. As part of the project, we'll be building new or retrofitting new infrastructure into an existing area. We'll have to do some water line relocation, so that'll be part of the contract as well. We've done a significant amount of public involvement through the BES public involvement staff. Those outreach has been to businesses and residents in the area. We've conducted open houses. We've made a presentation to the neighborhood association to inform them about the project and what the project impacts are and what the scope of the project is. Our engineer's estimate to date is a little over $2 million, so $2.255 million to construct the project in its entirety. We're anticipating starting in July this year, 2017, roughly a year of construction duration. Any questions from the mayor or commissioners at this point?
Not yet.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
Is there any public testimony on this item, Carla?
No one signed up.
Seeing none, these moves to a second reading of the emergency first ordinance. Next item, please.
Item 287, authorize a contract with Carollo Engineers for engineering services for the Tryon Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant Secondary Process Improvements, project number E10694 for $1,137,130.
Commissioner Fish.
Mayor and colleagues, under Mr. Gibson's contract with the city, he gets a bonus if he does 3 or more presentations in any single council hearing. So we welcome back Scott Gibson and Vu Han, who are going to be presenting. This ordinance would authorize a contract to upgrade the Tryon Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant, which was constructed in 1964 and expanded in 1976. This project will improve odor control and wastewater processing at the plant, which serves both Portland and Lake Oswego residents. The design will take 1.5 years to complete, And the next step would then be construction. Scott?
Good afternoon. Vu, would you like to run through your presentation?
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Vu Han. I'm an engineer in the Wastewater Engineering Group with Bureau of Environmental Services. The Trine Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant is the smaller of the two wastewater treatment plants that BES owns and operates. It is physically located in Lake Oswego, as Commissioner Fish mentioned, that it was originally constructed in 1964, was substantially expanded in 1976. The map on the right shows the service areas and the total population served by the Trine Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant. It totals up to just under 50,000 people. The data you see up there is a couple of years old. I'm pretty sure it well exceeds 50,000 now. The secondary process improvement project was identified as one of the projects in the facilities plan update for the Trine Creek plant completed in 2014. The main project area is at the back of the treatment plant. So it's well hidden from public sight. There will be hardly any expansion of the footprint, mainly just retrofitting, improving, and repurposing work to optimize the existing systems. There are a number of project objectives. One is to improve flow throughput to meet peak flow demands in the future. Another is to address various conditions at the plant and also to improve performance and reliability. It will also address several regulatory issues as well as providing site enhancements. The project scope includes aeration basin process improvements, improve automation and monitoring control systems. It includes conversion of one of the two digesters to provide storage for waste activated sludge, and it will also provide improvements for the odor control system and electrical systems out there. The current project budget is about $6 million. The cost estimate level of confidence is low given the current planning levels. The Gantt chart you see there shows the major phases of the project. As Commissioner Fish mentioned, that the pre-design, design, permitting phases will take about a year and a half. Then we'll go out for advertise for construction, and then complete construction in the project by mid-2020. The professional service contract was advertised for competitive selection. We received 6 proposals. We shortlisted 3 firms before making final selection. The selection committee included a minority evaluator program participant. Carollo Engineers was the firm selected and in accordance with the city code. The negotiated fee is $1,137,130. It includes design services, bidding, and construction support services to complete the project. The minority participation for this project is higher than normal at 40% total. Which comes out to be about $538,980. There is one ESB firm at $27,120, one WBE firm at $28,160, and a total of 4 MBE firms, total to $483,700. We recommend the City Council to authorize the execution of the PTE agreement with Carollo Engineers with the amount stated, so we can proceed with the design work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions for this panel? Any public testimony on this particular item?
No one signed up.
Hearing none, let's
Item 288, vacate a portion of Southwest Hooker Street east of Southwest Water Avenue, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
This is the second reading. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Saltzman. Udaly.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. We are therefore adjourned until 2 p.m.